I've never done a video like this before. I've written it 100+ times, recorded it with my teleprompter, edited it a dozen times, had friends watch it, contacted lawyers to see if I'd be able to say the things I'm saying, but I could just never hit publish. It never felt right. But I also can't go on doing the content I'm doing, talking about politics, talking about life as if it's all just normal, without saying these things, without having an honest, candid conversation about the truth of my time in politics, the truth about why I left, the truth about everything around me that so many people and influencers don't want you knowing because it makes us look bad. But the only way we can do better is by having honest conversations. But I don't think I can have that conversation in here. Can we take the lights outside? Cannot believe I'm finally doing this. Gosh, I'm so nervous because I never talk about any of this stuff on camera. But okay, yeah, shot one. Where did it all begin? I was born into a family, and I had a wonderful, wonderful mother and father. We weren't particularly wealthy. I remember my first crib, I've seen a video of it, was a bathtub in my parents' one-bedroom apartment. And there's, this cute video of my dad walking into the room and saying, "Hi, Lauren," as I'm sitting there in blankets in the tub. Thank God a pipe didn't burst, or I wouldn't be here. But growing up in that household, I never knew anyone who was involved in any big-time politics or TV or anything like that. That was like absurd. The idea that I would ever be talking to hundreds of thousands of people, the idea that I'd ever be meeting politicians, like completely out of the picture for what my life should have looked like. You know, a very solid working class family. But my dad liked listening to political podcasts every day when I went to school. He'd put Dennis Prager on and Michael Savage, and I kind of found it all very interesting. I really enjoyed it and got into it a bit myself as well on the internet, on Tumblr, all of that. And eventually when I got to university, I decided I wanted to try doing politics as well. And I was the first one in my family to go to university. So that was really, really exciting for me. I was working like 3 jobs, minimum wage. It was $8 an hour then. I still can't believe it. And I'll never forget, I was 19, driving back and forth to university, and my car tank was empty. And I found $2 under the mat in my car, and I was so excited because I was like, I don't have any money in my bank account. It's totally empty, but this $2 might be able to get me home today so I can wait for my paycheck tomorrow and get to university the next day. I was so stressed financially at that time. And oil and gas policy really pissed me off because we had just brought in all of these policies in Canada, you know, raising the carbon tax that increased prices of oil and gas, and it actually really affected me on a serious level of, am I going to be able to go to university or not? Am I going to be able to get to work? So conservative policies on oil and gas were something that I was really interested. Anything that, yeah, made it easier for the working class, the regular person, day to day. So I joined this conference in university called Conserving Oil and Gas in Toronto. And my boyfriend at the time, who was this lovely Mennonite guy, decided to come with me. We flew to Toronto. It was one of maybe the second or third flight I'd been on in my life, and I was so excited to go to the big city. I got there, and it was being hosted by a man named Ezra Levant.
Ezra Levant. He's a source of debate, a source of controversy, a source of entertaining television. Introducing Ezra Levant only on Sun News Network.
Ezra Levant, yep. Man, I remember watching him on TV when I was in high school. I would have been like 14, watching him on Sun News. And he's just this insanely confident, always worked up guy about free speech and Trudeau, the left-wingers and government. I loved watching it with my dad. It was very fun. And to see Ezra Levant in person, I was full-on fangirling. It was embarrassing. I had read all of his books. I brought Groundswell with me, I think, to try and get it signed by him. And not only did he come and sign it, he sat beside me at this dinner at the conference and talked to me for like half an hour. And I went home just elated, so excited by the whole experience. But, you know, went back to my little life. And that was that crazy political experience I had, and I decided, okay, you know, university is getting difficult to pay for. I am falling behind in my classes because I'm working so many jobs on the side. I have to kind of find a solution to this, so I decided I was going to join the Army. I'd filled out all the paperwork. I heard they had a program where they would pay for your university or for you to complete your university if you gave them a certain number of years, and that was going to be, you know, the best career option I could possibly have for my future. And then I got this email out of nowhere from Ezra. And it said, Lauren, I'm starting a new media company called Rebel Media, and we would love for you to contribute to it.
Sun News Network is off the air.
Bang, gone. That's basically what happened.
Sun News Network went off the air today.
Sun News Network has gone dark.
The end of Sun News Network.
Sun TV faded to dark.
With Sun gone, there's a hole on the far right side of the dial.
Ezra Levant fighting for freedom in Calgary. Good night.
Every day, the consensus media had one goal: stop Harper.
That's Ezra Levant, a journalist many consider to be the solo remaining voice of the conservative right in Canada.
Reporting live on election night here at his website, therebel.media's brand new Toronto studio for the very first time.
As you can see, it's just a box with a bunch of green screens and green blankets.
I was shocked that he wanted me, of all people, the girl who came to get my book signed by him and was just starstruck, drooling, to make a video for Rebel Media, his new outlet to support working class, good conservative Canadians like me and my family. I was elated by the idea and said, absolutely. I didn't think much would come of it. I looked at their channel and it had a few hundred views here and there, and I figured I'm in political science, so it'll be a good opportunity to help my speaking skills, my presentation, to have this connection. But I really cared. I really wanted it to look good and to impress, you know, Ezra and all the people working at Rebel. So I wrote a script. I called it Why I'm Not a Feminist. And it was the first video I made for Rebel. I probably filmed it 13, 14 times, eventually paid a friend to come help me do it because I wanted to get it just right. And sent it over to Rebel. Didn't expect much of it. Figured it would get a few hundred views. Went to bed. Woke up the next day, and my life had changed overnight. It had not hundreds of views, not thousands of views, millions of views. Millions. My friends were calling me. My friends at university were coming up to me saying, I've seen the video, Lauren. Oh my gosh. I had thousands of messages in all of my inboxes on Facebook, Twitter, and in the span of 24 hours, I went from that fangirl wanting to get her book signed by Ezra Levant and going back to my little life working a minimum wage job to being at the center of everything I was watching, commentating on, and being fascinated by from afar. Just like that. It's hard to like bring back the memories at this point. It was, I feel like, such a hectic time in my life. There were so many changes, so many eyes on me, so many opportunities that I never thought I would ever get in my life. And I was desperate to make it work. Because like I said, I wasn't set up to be a doctor or a lawyer or something with some massive fund ready for university. This was like, if I got this opportunity and I made it work, that would change my life forever.
What a gorgeous day in Vancouver, and joining us to talk about herself is Lauren Southern. Great to see you in person.
Great to see you, Ezra.
Lauren, you are the #1 star of the Rebel.media. Your commentary on feminism, well, it got almost 600,000 views on our site, and it was pirated by other
Rebel
sites.
offered me to have a show at that point. They said I could go out and do recordings at protests and come out to Toronto once a month to do a show, Standoff with Lauren Southern. We're in serious trouble if we don't get an entirely new government. If you don't protect everyone's free speech, you're going to find your own silenced at some point. Oh, they paid for the flights. Sorry. They paid for the flights, but they didn't pay for anything else. So I'd use a couch surfing app and I'd stay at random people's houses, sleeping on their floors to go and do this show in Toronto. It was insane. The fact that I'm not murdered, or it is incredible. Incredible that I didn't get killed. Yeah, it really frustrates me now whenever I see people be like, oh, Lauren only got all these views and everything because she's a cute blonde girl or whatever. Like, no, I sacrificed a lot. I made a lot of efforts to make this work.
Why?
Because I cared. I deeply, deeply cared. I actually, I'm almost embarrassed sometimes looking back at it, but because so many people that I worked with in politics didn't actually believe in any of the politics that they spoke about. It was kind of an aesthetic. A lot of people who didn't make it in acting kind of got into politics and learned the talking points they had to say. And I was fully bought in from the start. I believed this was a civilizational battle for the heart of the West, for goodness, righteousness, conservatism, family, Christianity. That was all something that I truly, truly believed in at the core of my heart and soul, to the point where at that time I was getting kicked out of university classes for speaking up. I was, threatening my work. I almost lost my job, having to take so many days off to go and do these videos for Rebel. And I didn't make any money, not a dime off any of it.
Just to clarify, so people don't think I'm lying about this, after my first video went viral, Rebel did offer to pay me a stipend of $100 per video. But the problem was they were paying for fully produced and edited products. So I had to hire an editor who I was paying a minimum of $120 to $200 per video for. It got to the point where I was struggle busing it so bad with $0 in the bank, I would have to make him wait until I got my paycheck from my university job, Cascades Casino or EV Games, before I could pay him. So all of those videos I did where I got millions of views that would have gotten thousands of dollars in ad revenue, I lost money making them. Eventually, after some months of working, Rebel did give me a full-time job there and would cover hotels, etc. So I saw this all as worth it, but I had to fight for it for sure.
I maybe had flights covered sometimes, but I paid for all of those videos I made at the very beginning with like the $0 that I had. No one was talking about this stuff at the time. YouTube had been around for a while, but most videos on YouTube were Fred, Smosh, people making funny, silly little skits, and then the news was just the news. It was, okay, there's been a traffic jam here, and this bill has been signed, or whatever. There wasn't this massive sphere of political creators and streamers and all these little media companies that had become online entities, and they weren't talking about these controversial hot button issues like feminism going wild in universities at the time, men being told they were evil, being told that you're a horrific, awful person for being white. What really triggered a lot of this for me was taking the first social justice class that was introduced to my high school curriculum in Canada in grade 12, and they split us at the lockers based on if you were privileged or oppressed. And I was put on the privileged side just because I was white. And I remember looking at people across on the other side of the lockers that I knew had extremely wealthy, privileged backgrounds that had been put on the oppressed side and thinking, this is madness. This is insanity. What world are we living in? And why is no one talking about this? And so obviously, I'm like, yeah, I want to make these videos for Rebel. Yeah, we need to be talking about this. And man, I was so passionate about it all. And I just didn't realize at the time that, I don't know, that passion I had as kind of the little guy coming into that big world wasn't as organic for a lot of the players that already existed in the world of politics. Joke's on me, I entered politics and didn't realize it was full of liars and frauds. Wow, surprise, surprise. But okay, so anyways, I could get into all of that for a while, but obviously, one thing I wondered when I first started making these videos for Rebel was, am I just a one-trick pony? Is this just going to be why I'm not a feminist, millions and millions of views, and then no one cares about anything else? But that didn't end up being the case. In fact, I started going to protests like an absolute crazy person and counter-protesting these feminists and asking them questions about their ideology and philosophy, and those videos went absolutely viral as well. Lauren Southern crashes Vancouver Slutwalk. Lauren Southern crashes Alberta Slutwalk. Whatever they were, people loved these on-the-street questioning protesters' videos.
No means no! No means no! No means no!
You are attacking our cameraman. The whole point of the walk is to protest rape culture. I think that video went so viral at the time because not a lot of politics was being done that way. Today, you have 1,000 different people on the streets going to protests with live streams. It's like extremely common to the point where it's like saturated to go to protests. But at that time, no one had really seen it before. Commentators, political pundits, your place was behind a desk. You told people your opinions after the event happened. You didn't go to the event and then opine or cause commotion at said event, especially on YouTube. It just didn't really exist that much at the time. I don't want to say I'm the first, because that's conceited, and I'm probably not, but one of the first people on YouTube doing that, for sure, which was, yeah, just a wild experience. Of course, when I figured that was the kind of commentary people liked, and that was the critique of feminism that was working, that was getting people talking about, wow, these feminists don't really have their ideas all together. There's some serious contradictions going here, some serious flaws, right? I decided to keep hammering that hard. And one opportunity I got was to go down to Los Angeles to the Amber Rose Slutwalk. And not only the Amber Rose Slutwalk, but to meet another hero of mine, Milo Yiannopoulos.
Caviar and cigarettes, well versed in etiquette, extraordinarily nice. She's a killer queen, gunpowder and gelatine.
Milo Yiannopoulos, also known as Nero online, is one of the most famous or infamous trolls on the internet.
I'm a gay Jew from Britain with a black boyfriend who really likes the Bible and guns and really doesn't like taxes.
He's an editor at Breitbart, the ultra-conservative news website.
I don't say anything I don't believe, but of course I do say things in a way that is going to elicit a response from people.
Oh, love wins, let's end hate. You know, like, what does that even mean?
I could not say no to an opportunity to meet Milo Yiannopoulos, to work on a project with him, and to go to another one of these slut walks where we could criticize this massive feminist enterprise that was ruining the lives of so many good people I knew. And this is a good segue for getting into the story of the Amber Rose Slut Walk. But one of the big reasons I didn't like feminism was because I had so many good men in my life. My father is an incredible man. Love him to death. Such a good dad. The men around me at my church, the men who were my friends in high school and elementary school, even the men that I dated at the time, like, wonderful, wonderful people, truly. And to see them being portrayed as evil rapists and misogynists and bad for women really angered me.
Most men are rapists. And by that I mean most cis heteronormative men.
The only answer to that is to kill male babies and just kill any man that you see, like in the streets, like any swing dick, just kill him.
It really, really, truly upset me at the time. And I didn't really understand this visceral hatred and distrust towards the world and men that feminists had at all. It wasn't my lived experience, which brings me into how I got to the Amber Rose Slut Walk. So of course, flying to LA, couldn't afford that. Staying at a hotel, could not afford that. I've explained this already. And I was lucky enough that an individual who was involved in the anti-feminist sphere had sent me an email. I think it was even under a fake name like John Doe or something, and this is how trusting I was. He just offered, Lauren, if you're willing to come down here, I'll pay for your flight, I'll pay for a place for you to stay, you'll be all good and sorted, right? And all I want basically is for you to make this content criticizing these crazy feminists. This cultural issue is so important for me that I'm willing to fund your trip. Amazing opportunity. I think I even messaged him back and I was like, thank you so much. Yeah, we can hang out, play some video games, have a glass of wine, and go to the protest the next day. Of course, my 19-year-old brain had no conception whatsoever, no idea of red flags that I'm gonna go meet a strange guy in a different city and go stay at a hotel that he sets me up at. Like, just the red flags would be obvious. Now I look back and I'm like, you dumb bitch. But then it seemed all perfectly fine to me. I land in LA, meet this guy. He takes me to my Airbnb. And it's barely an Airbnb. It's like actually just like some Harry Potter-ass closet that someone has made in their apartment with like a draw curtain in the side of the wall, a cubby, if you will. And I go to bed because I arrived super late in Los Angeles. It's like 10 p.m. there or something. And this guy that's invited me out to film the protest says, I'm sleeping in the bed with you. I just did not even compute. I didn't understand. I was like, oh, no, I'd like to sleep in the bed myself. And he said, no, I paid for this bed. I will be sleeping in the bed with you. I'm sorry. I don't know. I was so panicked, so shocked by this situation. I didn't really know how to respond. I think I made something up about how, oh, maybe tomorrow or something. I just really need to get sleep tonight. I'm not feeling well. Please leave, please leave. And I finally got him to leave the Airbnb, but I was absolutely terrified. Terrified that someone would, obviously now, you know, looking back, I can see why someone would think that. But me, 19-year-old me, like when I was younger, I was like, why would someone fly me out here to do something political with the expectation that I was going to sleep with them? That's like crazy to me. They didn't say anything about that. I didn't say anything about that. Why would they put me in that situation? If I could go back in time and slap myself and tell myself to be a less trusting individual, I would. I would, because I put myself in a lot of really unfortunate situations politically because of this naive trust I had. Sadly enough, probably some of these feminists that still, I think, have insane ideas in a lot of ways, but some of them probably would have given me the same warning. Just they took that lived experience to such an extreme that they made it impossible to communicate to anyone else who hadn't lived it. And it makes me angry looking back at some of the radical feminists that I confronted when I think, if you guys had just been more reasonable with how you presented things, if you hadn't made it all men, if you hadn't sat around and demonized an entire sex and told me they were all rapists and been hysterical with how you presented your ideas, then maybe me and other women would have actually listened to the real criticisms of the world and gender dynamics that you had, some of the important lessons you had. It makes me really mad because there are things that feminists say that are true. There are power dynamics that exist. There are situations that women can get themselves in where they'll be in danger. And all of those warnings fall on deaf ears when you put them in the context of ridiculous, exaggerated talking points of all men are evil, right? So it makes me very sad looking back and wishing that I could have had reasonable conversations with these women. It was probably half my fault, half theirs, right? But, so I was pretty shaken up the next morning after the whole guy who invited me confronting me and asking to sleep in my bed. But I'd gotten an invite from Milo to go meet him and his assistant at a restaurant in LA, and there was no way I wasn't going to show up to that. So I put on the nicest dress I owned. I showed up to this restaurant, and it was the most opulent thing I had ever seen in my life at that point. I mean, the conservatives I hung out with at home, I met them at church and I met them at farms. I went to university at a place called University of the Fraser Valley, which was out in Chilliwack and Abbotsford. If you're Canadian or from BC, you'll know what I'm talking about. My conservative mates were, you know, manure hauling, cow farming, chicken farming friends of mine that were riding around on tractors, not going to opulent restaurants in Los Angeles. So this was a whole new world to enter. I didn't even know there were conservatives that did this, that were cool, so to speak, right? And I guess Milo was kind of one of the first to start that culture of let's have conservatives that are into fashion, that are cool, that are gay, that are this, right? So that was a very surprising and somewhat galling, but obviously amazing experience for me. We talked for hours. We talked about Breitbart. Milo gave me so much advice on what to do in media and politics, advice that I look back on now, and I don't know how good it was, but I was very overwhelmed by the whole experience. But I remember being quite thankful that Milo was sympathetic to my situation with the Airbnb guy and said, listen, come stay with us. Don't worry about it. Like, that's really crazy and creepy. We'll keep an eye out for you so that, you know, you don't have to worry about this creepy guy trying to take advantage of you. So the next day, this guy, I tell the guy I don't want to stay in his Airbnb anymore. Don't worry about it, bud. Like, just stay away from me. This is really creepy. He has an absolute freak out, like yelling at me. He starts going into his Skype messages. He starts going on his little like Twitter DMs with all of these different anti-feminist groups and basically saying I'm a fraud. I'm this horrible, horrible fraud that was actually just terrible in person, right? And this was the first time I had experienced something like this from someone that was supposed to be like my friend, my side of the aisle. I'm standing up for you, man. I'm criticizing feminism for people like you, and now you are acting the way that these feminists would portray a man. Why is this happening? And that was a really upsetting experience for me, but that passed. I kind of shook it off as a one-off. That's a one-off thing. This guy was a little crazy, but you know, 99.9% of men are good people who would never do something like that. Anyways, it's the next day. Milo, Alum, and I and a film team go to the Amber Rose Slut Walk. It is a gorgeous, sunny day out, so you got girls everywhere wearing nothing, boobs out, tape on. And Milo and I are ready for chaos. We've made these very offensive signs, horrendously offensive, that are like Harry Potter and rape culture. What do they have in common? Neither are real, you know? Just absolutely inflammatory stuff. And we show up at this event, and of course, after we've done a few interviews, bring out our signs, and these girls go wild. They are losing their minds. They're twerking on us. They're trying to steal our signs. They're trying to attack us. The police get called. We're getting dragged out by the police. And I remember just being so full of adrenaline. I think I even said to Milo, like, let's stay, let's get arrested, let's do it. And I think the only reason we didn't stay and get put in handcuffs was because Milo and I were both foreign citizens, and we would have been banned from traveling if we got arrested and got criminal records in the US. So we walked out, but we still got some amazing footage.
All right, so why are you guys out here today at the Slut Walk?
Beautiful ladies.
Of course, beautiful ladies.
Amber Rose. Amber.
Amber? So all of you just came out here to see all the chicks scantily clad?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a great cause. I'm all for it. I'm all for the sluts.
We went back to this apartment we were all staying, and just quickly emailing off the footage, getting it all edited, prepared for release, just so excited by this. Look at these crazy feminists. They're attacking us. They can't even have a conversation. They're ripping up our signs. They're calling the police. That was the content that really shocked people at the time, right? Because that going on the ground and actually confronting another person about their ideas in this environment, it was very new. And we're just sitting there hanging out after, so excited about it all. I remember, yeah, we went to a bar or something after, and it was just Milo, Alum, and I. And I got along super well with Milo and Alum, particularly Alum. He was such a sweet guy. I remember I cannot stress enough what a dork I was before I got into this political world. I went to anime conventions, you know, video games, read tons of fantasy. I was into all that stuff. And Alum was a bit dorky too and liked politics. So we got along really well. He'd laugh at my jokes, talk about, you know, all of these different animes that he had seen as well. And, you know, we stayed in contact for like weeks, months after that and got along really well. We had a fantastic friendship.
Cut for a second. Went on a long unnecessary rant here. Just gonna give you the TLDR. Alum and I went on a few dates in December of 2015. I ended things. Obviously, like any normal person, Alum was upset. And when venting to a mutual friend of ours, made a joke that he could leak a ton of my offensive messages to the press or public if he wanted to. I'm talking like old classic 2015 4chan memes. And when my friend told me this, he made it sound like the most serious, dire thing in the world. And I truly thought my reputation was about to be destroyed. My life destroyed, the political career I had barely even started yet. Joke's on me, I ended up making all of those offensive memes my political career anyways. But none of that ever happened. Alum never leaked anything on me. He actually ended up apologizing for the fact that we fell out, and I to him as well. And we're really, really good friends to this day. And to me, this really speaks to the all or nothing view of relationships that my generation has been sold by overzealous feminists on the one hand and right-wingers on the other. We're told we have to see entire sexes as either completely villainous or completely pure, and to interpret bad moments in our relationships as moral outrages, the end of the world, injustices that must be answered. At the same time, there's the ever-present fear of being quote-unquote canceled online for whatever reason, of having the worst sides of ourselves, or even just embarrassing sides, being dragged into the public eye. It creates this fear in relationships that wasn't really there in the pre-digital era, before it became just a trivial thing to broadcast to a global audience. In reality, relationships are messy. Bad breakups happen. People who really liked each other end up not liking each other for a while, and then time goes by and you're friends. That's exactly what happened with Alum. We're really good friends now. He's honestly one of the few people in politics that I would point to as an example of, man, that person stuck to their morals. They're a stand-up guy. If you watch the televised breakups of celebrities, you may be convinced that bad breakups and angry words mean you have to be enemies for life. It really doesn't have to be that way. But at the time, I'm sure both Alum and I felt that way. And so I turned to Milo out of genuine fear.
And Milo was really, really comforting, spoke to Alum, got him to come back to London. He's like, don't worry, Lauren, I've calmed him down. It's all okay. Close that chapter, or so I thought.
You've been struck by a smooth
Okay, so from this point, months go by and Milo's career is just skyrocketing. He's uncontactable, haven't heard from him in ages. He's on every TV screen. He's going on Bill Maher, speaking at every campus in America, protests every day, just insane. I'm at home just picking up groceries, and out of nowhere I get a call from him. I remember being in a parking lot in Walnut Grove and just seeing Milo calling my phone. I pick up and the man is just frantic. He's talking about Alum Bokhari, of all people, again, saying, Lauren, this is terrible. Alim has joined the left. He is working for Antifa. He is trying to leak all of my documents. He is trying to ruin my life. He's trying to take down the right wing. Don't you remember how horrible he was to you last year? This man is insane, and he is going to ruin my life. I've got contacts with Azalea Banks. I've got all of these celebrities. He's got their phone numbers. He's got their messages. He's going to leak them all to the far left media. He is trying to take down the conservative movement, and I need your help. I know he said horrible things to you or your cameraman. Any blackmail you have will help me right now. It will help me stop this far left attack on me that will destroy my life. And of course, I hadn't really spoken to Alim in a while. I had no reason to disbelieve Milo. He hadn't provided any proof for this, but he was Milo Yiannopoulos. He was the head of the conservative movement. Of course, what he's going to do and what, his word is God's will at this point if you're a young conservative watching politics, right? It's Milo. So I just say, of course, Milo. Of course I'll help you out. That's crazy. I have no idea why Alim would do that, but let me see if I can find something. And that was that. I didn't hear from Milo for ages afterwards. And at the time, I didn't know what came of all that. I remember so clearly that one call from Milo saying, I need blackmail right now, Lauren. This guy is a far left spy. I need help, and I need you to show your allegiance, basically, to me and the conservative movement. Now, I'm going to have to bring you forward a little bit from here, because it wasn't until years later that I discovered everything Milo said on that call to me about Alim Bokhari was completely false. Completely false, just made up out of thin air. Why, you may ask? Well, and some of this is publicly available information now due to lawsuits, but Alim Bokhari had written just about everything that made Milo famous. He wrote his book Dangerous, the most popular one, which he was owed a whole lot of money for in royalties. He wrote his speeches. He wrote his articles for Breitbart. He wrote his talking points for shows he went on. Alim Bokhari is a freaking genius. Actually an extremely talented guy, but none of that was appreciated apparently, because as soon as Alim wanted to get paid for all the work he did, Milo decided it would be easier to blackmail him. That's right. Milo did not want to pay Alim royalties for the book he wrote, and he figured it would be easier to call up people like me, call up friends and coworkers, and ask them all for any blackmail he could get on Alim Bokhari, so he could go to him and say, listen, I'm not going to pay you royalties, and you're not going to say a word about it or go to court, or I'm going to destroy your life with blackmail. What kind of a way is that to operate? I still it's crazy, because looking at this, it's like, what the fuck? Who does that to people? And somehow this is still more sane than half the shit we're going to get to in this video. But I had this moment in my life when I started to see this stuff happen over and over again around me of thinking, is this normal? Is this how normal people behave? Is this just what adults do? Is this what happens with regular celebrities in law offices? And what world have I entered that people behave in this manner towards one another? And it somehow all gets worse. It somehow all gets worse, because truly this sort of behavior, I hate to say it, because I put so much of my life and time and belief and my heart into conservative politics, but so much of this was the norm. Just the norm. The norm, day to day, what people just fucking did to each other all the time in this sphere. And if you weren't the one that was blackmailing other people, if you weren't the one that was ruining other people's lives to save your own ass, then you were the one getting your life ruined. For the most part. It was one or the other. And, just while I'm on the topic of sociopathic behavior in politics and support staff getting their lives ruined to save face for, the big famous people at the front that'll razzle and dazzle the audience, let's talk about the white privilege grant. Some of you may remember this. 2017, man, the years have all meshed together, but Milo Yiannopoulos started a grant called the White Privilege Grant to help poor young men, white men. Obviously, there are a million grants for black men, there are a million grants for women, Latina, mothers, whatever it be, but there are a whole heck of a lot of poor, rural, white people in America that have no grants for them. So it was a really cool opportunity for conservatives to give and help some people that have kind of been left behind and forgotten in society, right? And don't have anything for them. So a lot of people gave money. It was over $100,000 people gave to Milo Yiannopoulos to create this white privilege grant, he called it in a cheeky way. Months and months and months went by after he collected these donations, though, and no one seemed to know what was happening with them. No one seemed to know how the grant was being given, how to apply for it, what was going on. And Milo, thankfully, had hired a very organized woman named Margaret McLennan, who was big in the Gamergate days, to run this white privilege grant. She sent emails, she, made sure all the money was supposed to go where it was supposed to, set the website up, all these different things. And when questions started being asked about where all the money had gone, Milo Yiannopoulos told us all that out of nowhere, Margaret McLennan had just lost her mind and ruined the privilege grant, made it all fall apart, started to spread rumors about Milo, and tried to ruin his life. I guess much like Alum, she was just another woman that had suddenly turned to the far left and become a spy for them and was trying to ruin Milo. And we believed it. I don't know why. I don't know why. I still believed things Milo told me at that point. I had some sort of Stockholm syndrome of him being like the head of the conservative movement, the biggest figure in there, and everything he said was just like God's word, right? But I remember even talking to people and being like, oh yeah, that Margaret McLennan chick, she's a bit crazy, isn't she? She went crazy on Milo. Milo warned me about her. And even without any evidence or facts, you just believed what Milo told you. And once again, it wasn't until months and months later that I discovered Margaret had tried to tell her side of the story, but she just didn't have the platform for it. She had tried to tweet out the evidence. She had tried to explain what happened to the privilege grant, but most people didn't see it because she wasn't the one with the Breitbart byline. She wasn't the one with millions of viewers. She was just the support staff that got thrown under the bus. Margaret didn't steal any of the money. In fact, she published actual receipts, actual emails showing all of the money got transferred into Milo Yiannopoulos' bank account.
And now I'm proud to be one of the loudest voices criticizing the grant after I found what I believe to be internal mishandling. My name was removed from marketing materials, and Milo later attempted to shift blame for mismanagement of the grant onto me. My access as director was restricted to answering emails forwarded from the grant site, where I directed prospective applicants to wait, and I directed donors to wire money to a personal bank account owned by Yiannopoulos. The paperwork to sign ourselves as a charity was kicked down the road, and the grant was only addressed in public after major fundraising drives, when I spoke up to left-wing outlets in an effort to make sure the raised money would end up in the bank accounts of college students.
He took all of it. He stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from working class Americans to give to poor white young men who needed the help. And he just took it and then blamed his support staff, Margaret, ruining her life and her reputation so he could keep the money. And everyone just let that slide. Everyone just let it slide. I'm sorry, it's like all so shocking looking back on it. Yeah, I didn't find out, like, I just believed Milo. I believed Milo at the time about Alum. I believed Milo at the time about Margaret. And this is a bit of a premonition for the future of this video. But whenever I look forward and I feel bad for myself when a bunch of people believed stories about me that ended up or are false, I feel less bad for myself because I realized I played into this culture of, just believing what the popular figures in the right wing said about people. Oh, they're an Antifa spy, write them off. I just believe it. And then it happened to me and a bunch of people just believed it and didn't look into it further. And I was so shocked and offended and surprised. It's like, well, no, I did the same thing. We all think we're the party of facts and logic. We all think we're the, we're the right wing. We care about the receipts. We care about the reality. But then we have a lot of cult-like still have a lot of cult-like dynamics of our own, where people can get excommunicated, where we don't really look into things that deeply if the saints of our movement say it. And for how proud I was for a lot of my life of I really care about the reality, there were a lot of points where I missed it myself. No one likes to talk about this stuff because it's messy, right? It doesn't make anyone look good. It doesn't make me look good because it makes me look like I'm going to air everyone's dirty laundry. It doesn't make everyone in the movement or conservatism look good because they look like a mess. They look like it's full of people that are stealing money and lying about each other. And I could very easily carry on just making videos. I climb that social ladder, not talk about any of this, and my life would be a lot simpler. But I genuinely can't. I can't. It doesn't feel right. I feel like it's dishonest. I feel whenever I talk about the right wing and when people wonder why I have so much distrust or skepticism or why I don't like the right or isolate myself a bit more, no one really understands why. And I haven't explained any of it because it's just so much. It's so much. And it's easier not to talk about. But yeah, we're about to get into some heavy stuff here. We're about to get into some much heavier stuff. Whew. So 2016, 2017, back to the main storyline. Milo's in hot water over his privilege grant, and I am in some hot water of my own. I just don't know it yet. I've moved to Toronto, working for Rebel, killing it. All my videos are doing fantastic. I'm getting these interviews with Jordan Peterson, first one on SJWs, all his protests, they're going viral. At this point, I'm on top of the world. I don't think anything's gonna change. It's just upward trajectory with Rebel from here. And then I'm sitting at my desk in the office and I get an email. It's from Ezra, and it says the office are going on an Israel trip. We're gonna have some fun, try some couscous, make some videos. It'll be great. Okay, so anyways, a few months go by, we're getting closer to the actual trip, and we start getting emails asking us to do public crowdfunding for the trip and to crowdfund it as a fact-finding investigative journalism mission. No worries. The only problem I had was that when I was speaking to people in the office about the trip and getting itineraries for it, it became pretty obvious that this was a guided tour, not a fact-finding mission. We had, people we were slated to speak to every day. We had a tour guide that was, aligned with an organization that was assisting to fund the trip. And I have no problem whatsoever with guided tours of Israel, people who do these paid for trips to kind of get people to understand the politics and the ideas there. That's not my issue at all. It was that it wasn't being honest with the audience. What we were asked to pitch the audience was that we were going on this like hardcore fact-finding mission, when really it was just like a tour guide trip that was already being assisted in funding. So I sent an email to the higher ups telling them, listen, seems like a great trip, seems like a lot of fun. My particular expertise is not in Middle Eastern issues whatsoever. I don't have a massive opinion on this stuff. And I'm just not comfortable telling the audience that we're going on a fact-finding mission that's actually a tour, right? So can I fundraise in some other way? Can I maybe just ask people in general for donations to Rebel? Say we need help, say we need, obviously every company needs money to function and run. So can I just portray this in a different way that I feel is more honest to the audience? And maybe I'll even take a step back from the Israel trip. I don't have to go. I'm not a big fan of the structure. I didn't think I had done anything wrong. I thought that was like a very reasonable, well-measured approach to a situation that I was a bit uncomfortable with. But for some reason, I still had this sinking gut feeling that there was something bad about to happen. Went home, slept, got to work the next day, setting up my papers in the office, getting ready to write my video, and I get called into the general manager's office. I hadn't done anything wrong. I still hold that I had not done anything wrong, so I didn't think I had reason to be worried. But when they brought me in, I was told that I was being let go. I was being fired from the company. I lost my job in conservative media. And I will never forget walking out of that office with my little box of things and sitting on the curb outside thinking to myself, you know what? I did the right thing. I did the right thing. I was honest about how I felt about this. I was honest that it made me feel uncomfortable. And if I got fired for being honest, then so be it. That's why I'm making this video right now, because I'm really bad at being dishonest. But I also had this feeling of impending doom that just sunk in my stomach, realizing, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to pay my next bill? I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Toronto, sleeping on a mattress that I can't even afford a bed frame for. Just having this realization that doing the right thing doesn't pay the bills, it's depressing. but true, and it never changes. This video is probably going to severely hurt my career. Severely. There'll probably be a bunch of people that cut me off, maybe people that pursue me legally. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. But I have sat for so long wanting to make this video, and it bothers me all the time, every day, when I don't. So I just have to. Whatever. So after my whole crying on the curb situation, I say, F it, you know what? I believe in this. I believe in doing this right. I'm gonna go independent, do my own thing, not cause any drama, don't need that in my life, just move on. And then a few months after going independent myself, I see this video come up on my news feed of a couple guys that also got fired from Rebel that had a bunch of problems with them, named Kaylin and George. And they were working for Tommy Robinson, doing incredible content with him. It's going viral. Tommy's career is killing it. And these videos they're filming are just gorgeous. And I realized they've actually DM'd me before. So we get in touch and we decide we're gonna do some work together. I'll come out to London, we'll do some filming. They love what they're doing, but things are hectic and chaotic, which, let's get into that. I fly out to London, and Tommy, Kaylin, and George are, they're hard to explain. So publicly, the whole drama with Rebel Media, allegedly Kaylin and George were blackmailing Tommy Robinson. That was what the public story was. And that's why they were fired from Rebel, and that's why there was all this drama.
I've had a rough week. No, it's not what you think. It's not because the liberal media is criticizing us for being too right-wing. That happens all the time. Something else happened to me for the first time in my life, actually, and I don't really know how to say it other than to just say it, and I can't really believe it, but here it goes, I'll say it. I'm being blackmailed. They were threatening Tommy Robinson, too. Kaylin Robertson and George Llewellyn-John threatened to release video footage they claimed to have taken of Tommy Robinson confessing that he punched a guy at Ascot in self-defense.
When I went to London and I met them all at a bar together as they were laughing and acting like best friends. It was another one of those situations where I just walk in and I'm like, is anything these people in politics say publicly true? Is any of it true? Why are the three of you here laughing and having beers together when everyone on Twitter is talking about how you've all betrayed each other and are having this massive fallout? But they basically said, yeah, none of that was true. We're good mates. That's just Rebel drama. We're fine. We're all working together. Come join us in the UK. Have some fun. So I stay in the UK for a while. We film a bunch of videos. I watch their process filming content with Tommy. At this point in time, they are secretly filming for Tommy. So the public don't know since they're supposed to be in public drama. And this seemed to be a repetitive cycle. Actually, you know what? Let me pause for a minute here and explain this. This is really important. Kaylin, Tommy, and George were like a toxic relationship. They would fight all the time, they'd have problems and break up, but they also kind of needed each other. Like they worked really well together, but they were just constantly having these make-up, break-up sessions. But the issue was both of them would make mistakes. Tommy would go out on a bender, get drunk and fall asleep under a bridge somewhere and not show up to a shoot that they were supposed to do and forget to pay them. Kaylin and George would get pissed and decide to use his credit card to pay dinner for themselves since they didn't get paid for a whole day of work they were supposed to get paid for and took the day off for. And they'd have all of these constant falling outs that were absolutely 1000% both of their faults. But because Tommy was the public figure and because it was him that the public looked to and gave donations to, and he was kind of, you know, the face of the operation, whenever falling outs would happen, all of the blame publicly had to go on Kaylin and George. Of course, they're the support staff. If Tommy's reputation is wrecked, Well, then none of them have jobs anymore. So Tommy would apologize in private all the time for dumb shit that he did, for forgetting to pay them, for not showing up for things. He would apologize all the time in private, but no one publicly ever saw those apologies. So it looked like everything that ever went wrong in the relationship between Tommy, Kaylin, and George was always Kaylin and George's fault. It was another one of these million situations that I witnessed over and over and over again, where support staff would just absolutely have their reputations destroyed by famous people basically needing to protect their reputations, because that's their whole job. So Kaylin and George, I know a lot of people watching this are going to be like, are you talking about those Antifa traitors? Are you talking about those scum that scammed Tommy Robinson? Oh, my friend. I'm sorry, but you have heard a lot of stories that are just not even remotely close to true. And half of it started with this beginning constant breakup makeup cycle and apologies only happening one way publicly towards Tommy. So that's kind of explaining the grounding that I'm walking into in London and what I'm witnessing. It's all chaos. Everything people see publicly isn't quite the truth, and these people work amazing together, but it's a toxic relationship. Plain and simple. So at this point, I'm doing a ton of work with Kaylin and George. They're filming these hilarious, like just gorgeous videos for me, how to be a single woman. It was so funny. We had so much fun filming it. But then they're also working for Tommy. So Tommy's coming by every other day saying, hey, let's go out and do this shoot and that shoot. Half of it is public with Kaylin and George. Half of it is private and secretive. They're always in some drama. But eventually I get invited to speak at Day for Freedom in the UK. This was right after I got banned. Oh, there's a lot that happened between there, but that's for a whole nother video on its own. And I want to get into this story because once again, I really want to talk about all the people that were burned throughout this process and all the people that were burned over money, reputation, this kind of stuff. It's really important to highlight just how messed up the culture was in this political movement. Lucy Brown.
Look for the girl with the sun in her eyes and she's gone. The sea in the sky with diamonds. The sea in the sky with diamonds. Wait, go front. To the bridge by the mountain and broken horse people of
Lucy Brown. Lucy Brown was another support staff for Tommy. So there were like 3 people that were basically making Tommy's career possible. And you'll notice that you probably don't see much of Tommy Robinson on your feed anymore. And you can jump up and down and blame censorship. But the reality is, a lot of people need their support staff to be successful, and when you burn them, hard to keep going.
And the people were thanking me. I had loads of people coming up saying thank you for the day. I didn't do anything. That's the truth. They done it all.
So it was Lucy Brown, Kaylin, and George. They were running the websites, they were doing all the editing, they were doing all the graphics, they were organizing all the events, they were pulling Tommy and whoever else out of bars, half drunk.
She's been seek-hoiling her way around Birmingham. And somehow she thinks it's all sort of cute.
To get them to bed, to sleep, and then driving them places in the morning. It was crazy how much the 3 of these people did.
You're wearing real fur?
I think that's fucking
outrageous. That is disgusting.
How was that steak you ate yesterday?
Yeah, but JFK was
steak?
murdered.
You're not comparing a steak to fur?
I'm wearing it, you're eating it.
Lucy, this is a boardroom. What do you think you're doing? What's this? Presentation. Lucy!
That's not a fact.
But Lucy was one of the main point persons for organizing Day for Freedom.
Today has been called the Day for Freedom. These people feel like they are losing their voice in society. However, is that really the case when they're amongst some of the most famous, followed and talked about activists in the country? The event was organised by former EDL leader Tommy Robinson, who thinks that the government, the media and social media companies are trying to censor his views.
A lot of you will remember this if you were around in that time. Huge event in London. Milo spoke there, Gavin spoke there, I spoke there on a billboard right after my ban. And one of the angles that Tommy and Lucy and everyone thought would be fun to take was this isn't just like a free speech event for right-wingers. We support free speech in general for everyone. We're gonna have a, drag queen come and sing there. We're gonna have a Muslim speaker come there. Obviously, Tommy's whole approach to things was criticizing Islam, so the idea that he would do a free speech event and have a Muslim there would be massive, like really show a commitment to free speech.
So it's 8:30 and we needed somewhere to film in Manchester, and we were meeting Janaea and Red Pill Phil for our promo video, so I contacted my mate Mark. And we've invaded and we've drunk all his dad's beer. We've just finished, we left at 6 this morning, we're about to head back down to Luton now, we've got a busy day tomorrow, but this promo, it will be worth it. It's about showing how many people this is affecting, all the different communities and everyone that's affected. So yeah, peace and get your gear
out. Tommy actually did a public announcement saying we're going to have Ali Dawah, one of Tommy's arch nemesis, come and speak on stage. He did this announcement on Facebook. And he told Lucy, invite Ali Dawah, make a poster for him, bring him to the event.
Will Ali Dawah be speaking?
Yes, Ali Dawah will be speaking. He's our surprise Idiot of the Day guest.
But as soon as Tommy posted that Facebook video, he got incensed reactions from his audience. A lot of football lads, a lot of people that felt Tommy was betraying his criticisms of Islam, betraying his ideals by inviting this guy. And within less than an hour, Tommy deleted this Facebook video. Just pretended he never uploaded it. Gone, right? Deleted all of the posts he made about Ali Dawah coming, got rid of them all. The event comes the next day. Ali Dawah shows up for his scheduled speaking time. I think Count Dankula even posted a photo of the speakers list where it showed Ali Dawah's speaking slot.
Oh God, they've actually got Ali Dawah. It's happening, it's happening. This is fantastic.
Tommy's, it's hard to talk about because obviously this is, I believe there are so many legitimate concerns about Islam. I think there are so many people in the UK that are conservative, that truly, deserve a voice. But there were some bad actors there that were Tommy supporters, that when Ali Dawah and Mohammed Hajib, I think was his friend, when they showed up to give their speech, they got beat up. They got beat up and dragged out of the Day for Freedom event.
No, did Lucy say you could come?
Yeah.
Wait.
Struggling. Hey. What are you struggling with? The weather or? Yes, the weather.
What are you struggling with?
I can't say. And it's my lips are sealed, ironically.
Get a camera out of his face.
I was invited today. No, back up! Because I want to speak about freedom of speech. There you go.
Do you let us speak? Yes. No, you don't. When do you ever stand up for us to have our say?
Come on,
Jesus Christ is our Saviour.
The free speech event that's supposed to be for conservatives, supporting the free marketplace of ideas. Meanwhile, all of us make fun of Antifa for needing to resort to violence. That event resulted in right-wingers beating up Muslims for wanting to speak freely. Everyone becomes a hypocrite, hey? But that actually wasn't that was a terrible, terrible part of that event. Horrible part of that event. But that actually wasn't one of the worst things that happened. After Ali Dawah got beat up and dragged out of the event, a lot of people publicly wanted an explanation. Why did Ali Dawah show up, Tommy? Why did he think he was going to get this free area to speak his horrendous ideas in front of a crowd? And Tommy publicly said,
I'd be happy if my right to freedom of speech, where I was invited today, would happen today. If it doesn't, you know what that means?
You're on the menu.
Clearly said Ali Dawah was not invited to speak. 3 posts saying he's categorically not invited to speak. Now, those posts were removed from my Facebook. I didn't remove them. An admin removed them. Why? I don't know. But they were removed.
Just completely lied. I don't even dislike Tommy. I just dislike the fact that he did this stuff.
And this is where I absolutely have to call out Tommy Robinson for posting completely fake news to his Facebook profile. In a video Tommy Robinson posted the other day, it says in the beginning, Mohammed Hijab assaults police. The description of the video says, Muslim MMA fighter turns up to provoke trouble at the Day of Freedom, and his film crew live stream him hitting a police officer. #own goal. That is completely disingenuous.
He came out and publicly said, I would never invite Ali Dawah. Never in a million years. I would never invite that moron to come speak at my event.
Lucy, you're lying, Lucy. Stop.
What do you mean I'm lying?
You said to me to delete the tweet because you wanted to introduce him.
Go on, off you go, you fucking coward.
In fact, not only did I not invite him, he was secretly invited behind my back by Lucy Brown, who is this horrible left-wing Antifa spy that is trying to destroy our movement. Oh, where have we heard this story before, am I right? And he pinned all the blame for this on Lucy. Said she did it behind his back, was secretly working against him. Oh.
It makes you question how long herself or others have been conspiring or working together. We'll soon see anyway, won't we? But yeah, I should have took the warnings. Everyone tried to warn me. Everyone warned me.
And what came of this was just horrendous. Lucy randomly just started seeing all of these tweets all over her timeline, all over Facebook, saying she was a disgusting whore, a snake, that she had betrayed the movement, how dare she, and just started panicking. I've talked to her about this 1,000 times, but it wasn't until 3 days later that she found out that Tommy had also fired her from her job. She'd given up everything. She was quite a successful photographer. She had really good opportunities. She was a young, beautiful girl with a whole future ahead of her, and she had thrown it all away to work for Tommy because she believed in what he was doing, just to be fired out of nowhere so that Tommy could keep up public appearances. That, of course, I didn't invite Ali Dawah. Lucy was a secret snake that did all of this. And he obviously, to back that up, he couldn't just keep her employed. That would look crazy. People would be like, why are you still employing this woman who's a snake who went behind your back? So he fired her. He fired her to keep up the public appearance of this lie he told. That video of him saying he invited Ali Dawah exists. It's out there. But no one bothered to look for it. They just completely believed, once again, what their idol at the front of the movement, it's Tommy Robinson, how could he do any wrong? They just believed him and took a stand against Lucy. Lucy's life was destroyed. There's no other way of putting it. Absolutely destroyed. She had to go on to government assistance. She had a massive mental health collapse after all of this stuff that she sacrificed her life for. Everyone turned against her. She had to move back in with her parents, got extremely ill, going to counseling, almost killed herself. She did nothing wrong. She did nothing wrong. And she kept trying to tell the truth and just say, no, like, we should have let him speak. That was the plan from the beginning, and no one believed her. They all took a stand against her. There are absolutely no rewards for people who stick to their values in this industry. No rewards.
And these are people that are supposedly concerned about young white girls being groomed and raped, and they're speaking to you in this way.
Yes, as a result of, standing up and saying, I don't necessarily agree with this, or, I'm going to go my own way. I'm now, sort of living in a kind of situation where I'm sort of scared for my safety.
This is something I really want to touch on because it's something I have seen repeat itself so many times. But after Lucy's massive mental health collapse, her life being destroyed by all of this, she still has stalkers to this day that threaten to kill her. She has people yell at her in the streets over her being the traitor to Tommy Robinson. All completely false. Of course, when left-wing journalists came to her and said, "We care about you. We care about your side of the story. We're not going to treat you that way." Having someone say that to her, of course she'd want to go speak to them and have someone who actually wants to hear her side, which perpetuates the lie. People see her now go speak to left-wing journalists and they say, "See, we called her a snake. We said she was a snake. We called it, right?" When in reality, she was driven to speak to them by a bunch of people on the right being horrible to her.
Would you say he's far right?
British people. Like him or loathe him, he speaks on behalf of them. It's not about him in a way, it's about the people who he represents, and there's a heck of a lot of them, and they feel left behind.
Yeah, and it's like a self-confirming prophecy, but eventually Lucy realized all the left-wingers that wanted to speak to her as well just wanted to use her for political reasons and then discard her, and she's been having a really hard time. A really hard time since all of that. A lot of these people that I kind of look back on as the casualties of this political movement I got swept up in, I still keep in touch with them. I still talk to them and ask them how they're doing every once in a while, and I care. A lot of people that were in my position, they're just the casualties. They're gone. But I really care what happened to a lot of these people. So I've still talked to Lucy every once in a while, and I spoke to her recently, especially letting her know I was going to film this. I asked, looking back on it, what do you think of these people like Tommy that did this to you? What do you think of, obviously I had my own experiences with this. What do you think of these people that just throw you under the bus for sticking to your values? And she wrote something that, it's like a dagger to my heart when I read it, but she said, "Personally, I think we stand as a mirror to their failings because they either gave up on their morals long ago or never had any in the first place, and are surprised when someone with nothing to gain still stands up for what they think is right. Exactly what they claim to do to their poor audiences." And, you know, when she talks about that mirror, how Lucy's sticking to her values and saying, "No, you know what? You may try to ruin my life, but it was the right thing to say we should have Ali Dawah speak at this conference. It was the right thing. That's our true dedication to free speech. And I'm not going to lie about it." All I could think is when people see that mirror, that makes them look into how hypocritical they're being, all they want to do is smash that mirror. All they want to do is destroy people like Lucy who make them look at their own shortcomings. And God, it makes me, it's had to watch it one too many times, happened to far too many people that I care about. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna take a break. Farmlands.
I'm in South Africa to find truth. In a country where farming is one of the most dangerous jobs on earth.
The farm ladies are brutal.
When I went independent, one of the main things I wanted to do was just real on-the-ground journalism, like real stories, real people. I was getting so sick of the drama behind the scenes, so sick of the talking points every day in front of the camera with the teleprompter, right? And I just wanted to cover something real. And I kept seeing on Twitter all these people talking about a white genocide going on, children being tortured and murdered, whole families being executed and the government covering it up. And this just seemed like, why is no one talking about this issue? You have mainstream media companies with millions of dollars in budget that are not covering this at all. I'm not seeing it anywhere. So I spoke to Kaylin and George, didn't have much money at the time, but we had enough for flights there and back, and we were like, let's just do it. Let's go take this crazy chance, see what's going on the ground, and tell the story. So we booked those tickets, getting ready to go, and I remembered an old promise I had. Some of you will recall Faith Goldy. We worked together at Rebel Media. We had a great relationship, super close friends. She was like my mentor for everything. Mainstream politics, helped me buy dresses, told me how to fashion myself. I taught her about internet culture and memes, and we just got along well. But when I left Rebel, we didn't talk that much. We only talked one time in person before Farmlands was filmed. I remember telling her about my idea of wanting to go to South Africa, and we had made a pinky promise that if I went and did a report like this, we would do it together. She would come with me, and she really wanted to. And right before we left on the trip, I just remember that coming to the back of my mind and being like, I promised Faith we'd do something like this together. So I'm gonna call her up and just tell her about the trip, see if she wants to join. It's December, I was back home with my family for Christmas, and I called her that night, and she answered the phone. I told her about the trip, asked her if she wanted to come, and she just flew into a rage. It was the strangest thing. I was like, Faith, I'm inviting you on this trip to come with us. Like, if you don't want to come, that's fine, but I'm just putting it out there. And she said, no, Lauren, like, I am infuriated with you. You have betrayed me because you planned this trip behind my back. And I've got my own trip to South Africa planned the next month after you. And you going to South Africa will ruin my trip. It really confused me at the time because, first of all, I thought the only thing that mattered about this was that we were going to tell this important story. We were going to tell the story of people that were being horrendously harmed, discriminated against, tortured, and killed, and that was what mattered here. Not who got to the story first or what the timeline was for who was telling it. And more so, we were both planning trips, and I was the only one who held to our pinky promise to invite the others. So I didn't understand I just really didn't understand what right she had to be angry in that situation. But she was infuriated. So I tried to calm her down. This was a horrible trait I had. I was such a pushover with people that I was friends with in media, especially conservative media. Definitely not with the left or in public, but with my conservative friends, I was such a pushover. I just wanted to keep them friends with me. I really respected them. I thought so highly of this movement I was a part of. I didn't want them to hate me. So I always tried to smooth things over, which caused probably more problems than it solved. But I told Faith, I'm like, screw it, let's just do it together. You can come on my trip. We'll figure it out. It'll be fine. And Faith eventually agreed. She said, all right, Lauren, we'll do the trip together. It's fine. We're okay. 3 days passed. I kept contacting her, sent her text messages, called her, sent her Twitter DMs saying, hey, I'm booking flights. Are you coming? Are you coming? And she had disappeared off the map. She wasn't responding to anything I sent. And then 3 or 4 days later, she released a video on her YouTube channel titled Faith Goldy's Exclusive Trip to South Africa. All alone, just Faith. I'm going by myself. I'm going to go uncover the truth. All of the things I had told her about that I was going to do in my documentary with her, she just published as her own little exclusive thing. I called her up and I said, hey, I thought we were doing this together. What's going on? And she said, no, Lauren, I'm doing it by myself. I'm getting the story. And if you tell anyone you're going as well, I'll say you stole the trip from me. What? Like, what? This whole idea of stealing an idea from someone else, from a story that needs to be covered by as many people as possible, didn't make any sense to me, first of all. I wouldn't care if we both went on the trip, if she went first, if I went after. It didn't matter. It wasn't about the exclusive. It was about getting eyes on this extremely important subject. But to her, it was about making sure it was Faith Goldy's expose. Not just an expose of the truth, but that it was Faith Goldy that got the story. And that was another one of those moments of meeting my heroes and wondering, do you actually care about any of this? Do you care about any of this? Do you care about people seeing it? Or do you care about people knowing you're the one that got the story? And that was really another one of those, there's so much brokenness in this political movement, so much brokenness. It really hurt. It really hurt to lose a friendship over something like that, especially one that I thought was a close friendship. But I said, I almost considered canceling the whole trip, genuinely, because I was so upset about the whole friendship thing and Faith hating me. But eventually I went back to Kaylin and George. We talked it over and we're like, no, like, this is an important story. We need to tell it. Faith can do hers. Wish her all the success in the world. I hope as many people cover this as possible. Let's just do it. Who cares if people say we stole the trip? It doesn't matter. What matters is that it's being covered. But we fly out there, land, waste absolutely no time. Get in the car, we're sleeping on people's couches to make it work, saving pennies where we can. Every single day, 24 hours, working, collecting these people's stories. Just, they're pouring their souls out to us, sobbing about family members that have died. We're speaking to politicians that are calling for the murder of an entire people group in this country, and no one is covering this story at this point, and we are blown away by what we are finding on the ground. Those of you who have seen Farmlands, obviously, you know. And of course, as soon as we published our first video on the ground in South Africa, all the little people on Twitter started tweeting out, Lauren stole this video, this was Faith's idea, this, that, and the other. But I'm thankful that at the time, it was just such noise to us when we were there in person, actually doing the work, right? So I didn't care that much until we were talking to one of the farmers who, out of nowhere, asked us, do you know who Faith Goldy is? I'm pretty sure I've seen you guys in videos together. She's supposed to be coming out here in a few weeks and filming with us, and we haven't gotten contact from her. Do you think you could get in contact with Faith for us, Lauren? We've got this huge drill planned. We've invited all of these different farmers. They've taken time off work. They've spent all this money to make this happen, and we really want this story to be told by as many people as possible. Do you know Faith Goldy? She's not responding anymore. She's ghosted us. And I told them, I'm like, I think she's coming. I hope she's coming. I don't really know. When I got home and eventually they got to doing that drill, Faith never showed up. She never showed up. All of these farmers took their time off to tell their story to her, and she didn't go because she couldn't have the exclusive. She made up some bullshit reason on Twitter saying I couldn't go because my security was compromised, and then told her cameraman, a guy named Millennial Matt, to publicly tweet out that the security was compromised by me and my team, that Kaylin, George, and I had stolen her security, trying to get her killed in South Africa so she wouldn't be able to film her trip, and that's why she couldn't go to the country and do the documentary she planned on doing. Obviously, none of this was true. We didn't have security. We couldn't have afforded security if we wanted it. Not only that, we were purposely trying to help her. We left out things that we didn't film for Farmlands because people told us, oh, we want to show that to Faith. And we thought she should have some exclusives too. We want her project to do well as well. But she decided to cancel the whole trip, lie about why it was canceled, because she could not have the exclusive. I sit there and I watch these people on social media talk all day about, I want to help my people, I want to save the West, these farmers, I truly care about them deeply. And as soon as it gets down to brass tacks of, oh, you might have to share the story, that's too much. That's too much. The only people who lost out in this were the farmers on the ground, who didn't get their story told as much, who showed up and took weeks off work to go and help Faith, who ghosted them. Those are the only people who lose out on this. Who cares if there's kids being boiled in a bathtub if Faith Goldy can't have the exclusive and get the numbers for getting it first? Like, it made me so angry, and it still makes me so angry to this day, that was what was so important to people. That was what was so important to way too many people that I worked with. And publicly, you know, for their audiences, they make up all these lies and reasons of why. Painful, really painful. And getting back and obviously seeing on Twitter repeatedly, specifically Faith's cameraman, tweet and tweet and tweet saying Lauren is a fraud, she's lying, she tried to get us killed, because Matt was genuinely upset too, her cameraman. He genuinely believed they were going to go help these white farmers, and the only reason they couldn't do that was because I had tried to sabotage their whole trip. And it wasn't until many hours of conversation with her cameraman and sending him all the information that he realized, oh, Faith is lying to me. This had nothing to do about security being stolen. This had nothing to do with money being stolen or whatever. This was entirely just her not wanting to go for clout reasons. And Matt actually apologized to me eventually, which was really nice. But still to this day, I'll meet people that were like mutuals in politics with Faith and I, and this is something that happens so often, is people would poison everyone in the political movement against you. They'd say, oh, I don't know if I want to work with you, Lauren. Faith Goldy told me you stole her security and trip. No facts, nothing. She'd just say that to everyone she spoke to. And I had so many people poisoned against me over that. And it takes a long time to undo that. You know, it's easy to roll out a mat of lies. Rolling it back up is much harder. And again, this isn't about me. This isn't about the drama I went through in the background. This is about the fact that there are farmers in South Africa that did not get their story told, that took time off work, life, to be there, to show up, that were ghosted because of the nonsense that went on behind the scenes in this conservative movement. Because, or right-wing, whatever that we called it at the time, I don't even know. But because of the selfishness, the fact that so much of this 2016 alternative right, dissident right movement was so coded in selfishness, narcissism, cult of personality, and none of it was about helping people. It was about how will latching on to this person's struggle potentially boost my career? How will latching on to the deaths of these people boost my career? I'm not talking about the people who watch these videos. I'm not talking about the people covered in these videos. I'm talking about the people at the top. The people, the regular conservatives, you guys, the viewer that followed me from 2016, you're the victim of this all. This isn't the right wing are bad. This isn't my why I left the right video. I'm very conservative still. I just cannot not point out how toxic and sick this was. I can't, because if no one talks about it, then you just sweep things under the rug and it continues going on toxic and sick. And you have all of these people that rely on their favorite figures that they've given so much money and influence to help them, and they wonder why we're never moving forward. Why is nothing changing? Well, a lot of that money, influence, power, and faith people are putting in people is getting squandered away due to ego. And if we can't recognize that, then if no one's honest about what the problems are, we have no shot of ever fixing them.
Traveling in a fried-out Kombi on a hippie trailhead full of zombies. I met a strange lady, she made me nervous. She took me in and gave me breakfast. And she said, do you come from a land down under?
So we get home, edit Farmlands, which is a massive project, release it, and it is huge. So many eyes on this issue. People were just enthralled with what we discovered in South Africa. Emotional, heartbroken. It's getting reported on everywhere. Everyone starts talking about this issue. Millions of views. Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump tweets about white farmers in South Africa. The Australian government come out and say they're considering taking them in as refugees. I was seeing it every day on my timeline. Every day on my timeline. People like, this is real. This is happening. It's not just rumors anymore. And I remember sitting there thinking, all I want to do is talk about this more. I want to take it on tour, show as many people this documentary as possible. And I get an email from a tour company in all places, Australia, who really seem to care about this issue since their government are potentially going to pass policies to help these farmers. Of course I said yes, especially after the tour company told me they had worked with Milo, they had worked with Jordan Peterson, all of these people, and they said, you can bring anyone you want with you. We'll get you in every major city in Australia. We'll screen your documentary in every city. And I remember thinking, like, if my film can premiere all over Australia, all over this major country, have it in, massive newspapers, politicians talking about it, think of the impact that'll have on policy. Think of the impact that will have on these farmers living there. And then I get a text. I look at my phone, and it's a text from Milo Yiannopoulos, of all people, saying, Lauren, you need to either join my Australia tour that I'm planning, or you need to cancel yours. I'm trying to remember the exact wording. It was something along the lines of, if you go to Australia on tour, my tour is going to wildly outsell yours, and then you're going to be resentful and hate me for it. And I remember looking back and just thinking, what? I don't care. Outsell my tour. It's fine. I'm going here to premiere my movie. I'm going here to meet people, to give speeches. I don't care if 10 people show up. It'll be great. Like, you do your thing too. That's fine. And it seemed, once again, to him, like all that mattered was the numbers, the competing numbers. Who was going to be bigger? If mine was potentially going to be bigger, then I had to join his or cancel mine altogether. And I just said, no. No, we can both do it. It'll be fine. Do your tour. I'll do mine. It'll be great. I thought it was great. Didn't really realize the full extent of how not great he was until messages with his tour manager were leaked later on online, in which after I offered, I told him, it's fine, we'll do ours separately. I'll still promote yours, Milo. I'll still do work for you. I'll still tell people to go see yours. And he texted his tour manager saying, Lauren will not be doing a promo interview for my tour. You're just paying to give Lauren Southern access and exposure. Why? She fucked us deliberately doing her tour on the exact dates I told her. Why would you do this? What are you thinking? The answer is no. It's not happening. Fucking ridiculous. This is my tour. That means if we are spending money on original content, it features me, no one else. I'm the star. It's my show. You need to get used to it. I didn't steal his tour dates. I was invited by a company that had set dates, said yes to them before I ever heard from Milo. But more importantly, I remember seeing this and just being, once again, in this position of, what the fuck? I joined this political movement because I cared about the issues. I wanted to tell people about them. I wanted as much exposure for them as possible. I truly, truly cared about telling real stories and changing culture. And yet again, I am surrounded by a bunch of people where all they care about is ensuring they are the star of the show, ensuring that they are the only one that gets the exposure, the only one that gets that slice of the pie. They all just want the biggest slice of the pie, and they are willing to kick everyone out, anyone out, no matter how good your work is, no matter how important it is, gone to the curb. Fuck the white farmers, fuck everyone's stories. If I can't have the exposure, no one can. Doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter. I'm going to Australia, I'm doing the tour, I've got farmlands to show, people to meet, people to talk to, a lot of fans that are expecting me to show up, get on that plane, land in Brisbane, and I am stoked to start tour date 1. I'll never forget day 1 of that trip, walking into the Brisbane airport, wearing an It's Okay to Be White t-shirt, and it showing up all over the media, front page, everywhere in Australia. And I just knew this was going to be an incredible experience. I was so nervous getting on stage. I had stayed up all night practicing the speech. I remember sitting there with Kaylin and we had an apple and we'd throw it back and forth. I'd do a line and I'd throw him the apple. It was just for helping training. But still, despite all of the practice I did all night, I was shaking before getting on stage. I hadn't done that much public speaking, mostly in front of a camera. Walk up there, look into this crowd. There were 800 people that had showed up. And I remember the buses had been attacked by Antifa. The highway was shut down. There were protesters. And we had gotten multiple credible death threats the police had warned us about of people who wanted to come to the show and kill us. So Stefan and I were a bit nervous about that. So Antifa's outside screaming. We've got police surrounding the perimeter, dogs, the whole lot. The cavalry of cops just broke them up. Unfortunately, there's a medical conference going on in the other room, and these people leaving the medical conference are being berated and yelled at by these protesters.
Are we going around the normal way? Probably the safest way.
And it did somewhat eventuate. Multiple people tried to rush the stage, my first speech down in Australia. But luckily we had these massive security guards. I had my close protection. These big, I think they were Maori guys. They like dragged this social justice warrior off stage, kicking and screaming and howling like she was possessed. And the crowd just went wild standing ovation, cheering, hooting laughter. It felt amazing. Just smiling on that stage and laughing and cracking jokes with everyone there. And a lot of them had just watched Farmlands in the other room before the show started.
We tried Farmlands as well. We played some of it. It looks amazing. It was great.
Amazing! Show starting soon. And then when it ended, I got to sit at a desk and shake everyone's hand. Maybe some of you watching this now were there at the show, shaking my hand, saying hello, taking pictures. I loved that. I loved every minute of it. I loved meeting you guys and showing you my movie. So I'm just leaving a show in Perth, and this lovely girl named Jocelyn brought me a gift bag and a note and said I saved her from feminism and from being fat, and she is literally gorgeous now. Good job, Jocelyn. Thank you. We went to, it was just day after day, getting on a plane, sleeping for 4 hours, practicing all night, doing photos, doing media. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. I was exhausted. I had nearly lost my mind by the end of the trip. I have no idea how I'm still awake. The event actually went amazing. Antifa didn't shut it down. They got scared away by police on horses. A few people tried to come on the stage, but they were stopped. The headline of The Australian right now for me is that I'm a dangerous individual, and then below it, it says, woman tries to tackle Lauren on stage, protesters try to destroy event, and I'm the dangerous individual. What do you make of this? What did you say?
Oh, I said that you're none of those things, and that you're just a cunt.
Most of the signing sessions stayed until 2 a.m., and then we'd get home and have a flight at like 7 a.m. the next day. Kaylin, you broke your neck. My room. Kaylin, what are you doing in my room? What are you doing in my room?
What are you doing in a room?
What are you doing in my room?
I'm following my daughter.
Stop it!
So what's the best way to send
Oh no. Feeling.
I am excited and pumped and ready to roll.
But it all felt right. It all felt right. I think it was Sydney that I watched I walked into the room when people were watching Farmlands, and I saw people crying in the crowd. And it was that moment that I was like, this was all worth it. This was all worth it, this whole trip. Oh, and then after the fourth show, the tour organizers were very chaotic and disorganized. It was a mess. Quite frankly, Kaylin pretty much ran the show at that point. We walked into one of the auditoriums, and there were no chairs there. And I remember Kaylin turning to the tour organizers and saying, "Where are all the chairs?" And he had to go source them and find chairs for everyone. It was crazy how disorganized these tour organizers were.
This guy, give him the camera. This beautiful, beautiful man. He's one of the main reasons why this show has been a success.
And then one morning, it was either right after or before the fourth show, we get a message from the organizers, and they ask us to come down to a meeting room in the hotel we're staying at. I bring my mother, security. I brought my mother on tour with me. It was very cute. And Stefan, his wife, we all go down to the meeting room, and the tour organizers tell us they've ran out of money. It's gone. It's all gone. Nothing. Zero. No money left. The tour made $500,000 or something like that. I have no idea where the money went. No idea. I don't know how they wasted that much money. Maybe I do. I watched the tour organizer pulling thousands of dollars out of ATM machines, spending tons of money on alcohol, running off, and yeah, just being wasted. Well, Kaylin, Stefan, and I were staying up late making the show happen. My mother was doing tour manager stuff that she never should have been doing. We were basically scrapping things together at 3 a.m. to make this show happen. And then to find out on that day that all of the money was gone and all of our hard work and sleepless nights, none of it was going to get paid for. That was a pretty emotional experience, especially because I told my mother that I was going to pay her for coming along with me. And I didn't want to let anyone down. I told them, okay, what money do we have left here? We need to make sure the security are paid. We need to make sure all the support staff are paid. We need to make sure everyone involved in this is paid. Don't pay me. Stefan agreed. A stand-up act of him. Stefan and I both said, don't pay us for any of our speeches, none of it. Just make sure all of the support staff are paid. And for the rest of it, okay, you're out of money, no more money for flights to do the other shows. Well, these people have already paid for their tickets to come see us speak. They've already paid for their tickets for Farmlands, all this stuff. We'll pay for it. We'll make it happen. And we did that. We paid to make the rest of the show go on and to show up at all these locations and make sure the speeches happened. And like that, I don't say that to be like, oh, look at what a good person I am. I just want you to know this is what mattered to me. You guys who bought tickets to those shows, Farmlands, getting as many people to see that as possible. It was not about, oh, am I going to outsell Milo Yiannopoulos and get more money? Am I going to get really crazy numbers on everything? The numbers only matter because I want people to see the story, not because I'm going to make money. And I didn't complain about it. I didn't make a video talking about how hard done by I was by the tour. In fact, Stefan and I sat down and we said, we don't want this to overshadow how important this moment was. We don't want this to overshadow this crazy cultural media shift we effected in Australia. So we just won't talk about it. We won't tell anyone. We didn't get paid for anything. We won't sit there and try to claw back every bit of money back from these organizers, hire lawyers, go after them litigiously. Never did any of that. I just moved forward, worked on my videos again, and went off to make another big documentary. That was what was important. Not about, getting back the people who had wronged me or whatever. Genuinely, I don't know what has happened with their lives. I hope those tour organizers are doing fine, moving on. Obviously not great. Hope they don't do that to anyone else, but none of that stuff was ever what was important to me. Now we're at the everyone arc in Lauren's life, and I need a break for water. Ooh, I did not like people at this point.
If that's what it's all about, mama, if that's moving up, then I'm moving out.
Kaylin, what do we need to do about journalists?
We need to chase them into the sea today.
Spit out all my coffee crying because Brittany and I are at rock bottom right now. Like, we're rock bottom.
Yeah. The rock bottom where everything's funny.
The only thing that could make this worse is if we were dying.
Yeah. I have a feeling that there's a huge meeting going on beside us of all these men in business suits, and they're probably like, oh, classy young ladies, and then 5 minutes later it's devolved into Kleenexes and crying.
So at this point, obviously, I am like, F everyone. I hate everyone in politics. I'm not gonna associate with any of these people. I can't trust anyone. I need to just hunker down, have people that are good around me, people that want to do real work and aren't just sitting here doing infighting and drama and clawing for more fame. So I make a video saying, listen, I'm done with YouTube. I'm just doing documentaries. That's it. What's the biggest issue at this moment? The cultural peak, the mass exodus of people over the Mediterranean, from Turkey, from Morocco. Who is covering that on the ground? Who is actually looking at it from the starting points? Who's going to Turkey to where these people are beginning to walk to get on boats? No one is covering that. It's all just the mainstream media with all of their crazy slants saying every single person coming in is a refugee. There's no bad people, no ISIS members, no economic migrants. And if you question any of this, you're a bigot. Of course, that's never the full story. And Kaylin George and I wanted to cover it the proper way with some real nuance and investigation. So we make our pitch, tell everyone we're filming Borderless. And what are we working on?
We're working on a new porn film, which is going to star...
Stop. It's going to be really good, and it's not porn. Making a website right now.
It's migrant porn.
Look at all these DVDs. Get wonderful donations from, I'm sure, a lot of people who are still subscribed and watching, and thank you so much. That meant a lot, that people still believed in me and wanted me to keep doing documentaries, even if I wasn't doing YouTube as much. And get on a plane, head to Greece, where they've got one of the largest migrant camps in the world, Moria. On a flight soon, but I figured I'd just kind of show you my packing so far. The boys needed a bunch of equipment, extra propellers and batteries for the drone. More batteries for the Ronin. If you don't know what the Ronin is, it's like a, it's that thing that holds the camera that makes sure it's all steady shots. So wait, we're gonna put chocolate bars on the end? This is George's fitness plan. Yeah. I'm going on a ridiculously long trip and I managed to fit all my clothes in there. Get on a boat, take it over to Turkey, and I'll never forget those nights we spent patrolling the shores, speaking to olive farmers at 3 a.m., sitting in a car until 7 a.m., until sunrise, trying to stay awake, having coffees, pushing each other, stay up, there might be migrants, just waiting on all of these shore banks every day.
We don't even have a bag. I don't know. My bag's packed.
They're arguing about which camera is packed more compact, and they're having like a proper row about it.
Well, look, his isn't even in the fucking bag. I don't need to engage because I have nothing to prove, like George. Yeah, alright.
Terrified, because some of these traffickers have AK-47s, some of them have guns, but we are like determined to get this story. Oh my gosh, we were insane people. Turkey, like, they jail more journalists than North Korea. If you get arrested in Turkey, you are done. And we're sitting there going on migrant trafficking routes, walking with them, filming them, getting ourselves majorly implicated. And we did actually eventually get arrested and we were facing years and years in Turkish jail, but that is a story for another time. Oh my gosh, we were idiots, but we were idiots with a cause. We were idiots that really, really believed in what we were doing. So we get our reports in Turkey and we decide we're gonna go head up further down the border and check out different locations. It would have been ridiculous o'clock. We're driving in the car and Kaylin looks at me and says something that really took me back. He said, "Lauren, I need to go back to London." I say, "London? We're in the middle of filming. What the fuck are you talking about, Kaylin?" He says, "I need to go meet with Hope Not Hate." Obviously, I'm very taken aback. If you don't know who the group Hope Not Hate is, I of course do, because I've had many run-ins with them. One, they got me banned from Britain, and they got my Patreon account taken down by lobbying the organization. And unfortunately, I met them once after that to confront them about getting my Patreon taken down. So I was very aware of this group. They're nefarious acts, not great guys, ruined many lives of people I enjoyed, and my own. So I'm like, "Kaylin, why do you have to meet with Hope Not Hate? What is going on here?" He tells me this organization are blackmailing him, essentially. They are threatening both him and George with jail time, saying they're speaking to the British police, saying they're talking with intelligence agencies, that they've connected Kaylin and George with multiple radical events, including the Day for Freedom. They've connected them with the rise of hatred in London and the UK due to working with Tommy Robinson and making work for me, and that they're going to use all this information to get them jailed, questioned, put on lists so that they can't travel anymore unless they come and speak to the group and give them information. They're a pressure group. They're a very persuasive organization, and because they're non-government, they can get up to all sort of nefarious stuff. I absolutely believe, Kaylin and George, and still do to this day, that they were being threatened. I absolutely believe that. I've met with Hope Not Hate once myself. A lot of you know, but you don't know the actual context, as I mentioned earlier. And right after my Patreon ban, I was invited to meet with them, and I accepted it under the sole condition that I called multiple friends of mine that were in politics. I called Brittany Pettibone and told her about it. And then I called a journalist with Breitbart and told him I was meeting with them. And I intended to record the entire meeting to try to expose that Hope Not Hate had in fact lobbied Patreon, because Patreon were not being so upfront about being lobbied, and they didn't want to admit that it was a NGO that pressured them rather than their own policies. So we went to this pub in London, and I have a little camcorder. In fact, I think I have it now. Let me grab it. I would take this everywhere I went, have it hooked to my backpack so that I could record if I needed it, and it also would record audio. So I actually have the footage of that bar, that night we met them, of me sitting on the toilet, turning this on and just looking down at it and putting it in my purse and putting it under the table. Unfortunately, of course, not thinking, the audio came out horrendously because it was in my purse under the table, so you could barely hear any of it. I mean, I've still got it to this day, so I'll try to adjust some of it, but you probably won't be able to hear any of it. We got into a yelling match over political disagreements and stormed out of the pub after an hour. Never met with them again. Never again. We had that one meeting, and I actually ended up using it in my court case against Patreon later on. Kaylin and George then tell me, like, listen, Lauren, we have to go meet with them. We have to try to smooth things over. We're terrified. We're not going to be able to travel anymore. We're going to go to jail. We don't know how we're going to smooth it over, but there is absolutely no way we're going to compromise you. There's no way we're going to compromise Tommy. And it's important to mention that Kaylin and George were not just working for me at this point. They were working for Tommy. They were working for Stefan Molyneux. They were working for Alex Jones. They were working for a ton of people. And they were like, listen, we've told Tommy about it. It's all going to be okay.
They basically just want to know that we're not doing anything. We're not.
If you meet with Joe, be so careful about what you say.
Oh, of course. Well, look what's happened now because of bullshit I've said in the past.
Would they have been recording me when we went in?
If they were, you were super defensive and you were basically just arguing with Nick. So there was no...
You recorded them anyway, didn't you?
Yeah, there was nothing...
I don't have the recording.
Recording it when you said what?
There's this left-wing organization called Hope Not Hate in Britain, and they basically like full-time infiltrate the right.
It's a shame. Fortunately, all they really care about is that we're not organising the extreme protests in the UK.
They said that we were behind everything that happened in Britain.
It's true.
Joe's... What was his words exactly? I've just had Guardian Independent orders and follow me on Twitter.
They're all gearing up to say, if we take down those boys, then the Tommy Robinson will never happen again. Joe said there was a meeting that took place recently where they had 3 files on the table. And it was Tommy Robinson, Kaylin Robinson, and George. Everything we've ever done, our birth records, every hospital visit we've ever been to, every psychiatric, every au pair we've ever had, everything you can possibly imagine. Shit from when I was like 10 years old from another country. And they had all these files, and they were like, the hammer has to fall on one of these people, and who allowed this to happen?
It's like they're literally sitting there with the files and their hammer going.
Yeah, like, that's how fucking serious it is. And I'm not
to a point where if we carried on with Tommy, say he didn't go to prison and we carried on with him for another 3 months, we would probably be in prison by Christmas.
At this point, all I care about is my movie getting done. And as long as they're not causing any trouble, as long as Tommy knows, as long as they're not actually compromised, I just care about Borderless. That's my baby. That's my project. That's where my focus is. It did get done. It did get filmed. Everything was fantastic. Kaylin and George were risking their lives with me on this trip. I'm sorry, maybe publicly you guys don't believe that they were not compromised, but the guys almost went to jail with me for 5 years. I think I've got a bit of a better insight. Fast forward, we're in LA, we're filming the last bits of Borderless, the introduction, conclusion, all of this. Seeing this guy I really like, life is starting to get a bit more normal. I'm seriously considering leaving politics at this point because everything is so messy and so much of my visions of what I thought the conservative political world would be, so many of my visions of how I thought people would be. And, you know, I obviously believed everyone was as passionate and genuine as I was about wanting to change things, about wanting to save the West, all this stuff, right? I had been so black-pilled. A lot of that, you know, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed approach had really died at that point. So I really was seriously considering quitting and taking a step back or changing something. And out of nowhere, while I'm sitting there in my friend's apartment in LA, I get a call. Calls are never good in my life, it seems, from Tommy Robinson, the ghost of Christmas past, right? I'm like, what is Tommy doing calling me? I haven't seen him in ages. I've been banned from the UK, right? Pick up the phone, and Tommy is frantic, saying, Lauren, did you know that Kaylin and George are working for Hope Not Hate? Have you heard of this? Do you know? And I'm like, Tommy, like, what are you talking about? And he's like, he starts telling me, oh, Kaylin and George were talking to Hope Not Hate this day and that day. And I'm like, you know this. I know you know this. We've talked about it before. You know, you've met with Hope Not Hate, Tommy. You've met with Nick Lowe's before. Well, he starts having these conversations with me about Kaylin and George's actions that it was a very strange conversation. It didn't seem real because he was talking about a bunch of stuff that he already knew. A bunch of things he already knew, was aware of, and repeating them as if he didn't know them. And I got a bit of a creeping suspicion that this was a setup call. It wasn't actually a real conversation I was having with Tommy. So I asked him, Tommy, are you recording this conversation? Is there something weird going on here? And he goes, no, Lauren, I would never record our conversation. That's bizarre. No, of course not. Joke's on me. I didn't think about this for months and months afterwards until it came out that Tommy was, in fact, recording our call. And he was doing it because the BBC were planning a massive expose on him. It was cocaine, hookers, I don't know. I never kept up with the whole drama. But essentially, Hope Not Hate were trying to use the blackmail they had on Kaylin to get him to go and do this BBC documentary exposing Tommy. But Kaylin had warned Tommy about the BBC documentary because, as I said, he was telling Tommy the whole time about everything going on. And so Tommy wanted to, by any means necessary, stop this BBC documentary from going to air, including secretly recording people, including getting pre-recordings of the BBC documentaries, courtesy of Lucy and Kaylin helping him out.
Wait, pause. You may be wondering why Lucy Brown is helping Tommy at this point. Wasn't she excommunicated, betrayed by him? Yeah, she was. But when the BBC and Hope Not Hate reached out to her to get her to throw Tommy under the bus for their film, she decided she hated them more than she hated Tommy and approached him with the idea of secretly infiltrating their whole project. I've just included an excerpt from a response she sent to Nick Lowe's from Hope Not Hate when he questioned her as to why the hell would you save Tommy after everything he did to you? Lucy Brown is a lot of things, but an Antifa spy, snake, disloyal, nah, she's none of those.
And it was all just such a mess. The way the BBC were behaving was incredibly unethical, blackmailing people to get subjects in their film, using Hope Not Hate and NGO to work with them. That's the reason it never went to air. But then the behavior Tommy was partaking in to try to explain to the public and to try to stop it from getting released was also completely unethical. Like, he included spliced up recordings from my call with him that were completely out of context, where I said, hey, yeah, I met with Hope Not Hate, so did you. And like, it was just this short meeting in 2017 where we had this massive blow up confrontation and I never saw them again. Cutting out all the context to that and only including I met with Hope Not Hate. Trying to make it seem like there was this giant CIA plot against him, including myself and all these other people that weren't actually involved at all.
You're aware they've been meeting with them regularly?
I've met Joe too before. Yeah, I know that Kaylin and George have met with them before.
Continually met with them? When you was doing your Borderless documentary, Hope Not Hate flew out to Italy to meet them?
I don't know what they were talking about, but for the most part, I think they're just afraid of them.
It was all a very, very strange time, but oh my gosh, did that cause the rumor mill to start talking about how I was a secret Hope Not Hate spy. It made me really sad too, because I would have been perfectly willing to speak to Tommy just in an interview on camera and tell him, oh yeah, no, I disagree with what the BBC is doing. I think this is wrong. This is what happened. Tell him the whole story. Would have been completely happy to do all of that. But it can't just be, a complex story of exposing what the BBC did wrong. It had to be a total victory for Tommy, even if that meant destroying the reputations of me and everyone else around him, as long as it was a total Tommy victory. And it was the same shit I had seen over and over and over again, from Milo to Ezra to Faith to the tour managers, over and over again, just people screwing over everyone around them to save their own ass and not telling the full story to their audiences, not explaining what had happened because it's too complicated. So they need a simple story where they're just the good guy and everyone else is villains. And this is the point this has all been leading up to. It's still hard for me to even think about or talk about today, but Borderless is published. It's done really well. People loved the movie. We've had some massive exposés of criminal behavior from NGOs, incredible on-the-ground interviews with human traffickers. It was really a beautiful thing. I'm really proud of that movie. But I'm sick. I'm tired of politics. I cannot stand all of the backstabbing. I cannot stand the behavior, the selfishness, all of it. And I think it's making me a worse person too, because I'm at the point where I can't even talk to people or make friends or trust anyone in this world. And I don't want to live like that. I don't want to be like that, right? So I just want to start a family. I just want to start a family. I was actually married at this point when Borderless was released. Nobody knew that. And my husband and I had decided to have a child. And he's Australian, so I wanted to be able to go to Australia, visit family, of course, and see family. But there was one problem.
Welcome to the machine. Where have you been? It's alright, we know where you've been.
Because of everything I had done in politics, because of all the activism I had done, South Africa, Borderless, all of it, I had been put on a list called VACU. It is typically for criminals and terrorists that can't travel to other countries because they've got a record that won't allow them to enter other countries. And I had been put on that list due to my political activism. And it meant that I couldn't get a visa to go to Australia. And I had been advised the only way that I was going to be able to see my family, grandparents of my child, was if I quit politics altogether. So what I kind of expected to be like a slow trickle out, calm down, maybe do a few videos here and there, but settle down out of the political sphere, ended up being a full cutoff. Just publish a letter and say goodbye to everyone. Shut down all my social media, shut down my subscription site, all of it, instantly. Otherwise, my visa was going to be rejected and I was never going to be able to enter the country. And that's what I did. Right after Borderless came out, published, I'm leaving, I'm quitting. Just a nice little letter I emailed out to people and said goodbye. Said I wanted to focus on family. I didn't talk about why. I didn't tell anyone about the Australia VACU stuff because that would probably jeopardize my visa too. I couldn't publicly discuss, those government affairs and problems. And I was lucky enough that right after I published that letter, I did get a response that said, your visa's been accepted. You're allowed to visit the country now, but it's on the one stipulation that you have quit politics and you will never violate any of our character assessment standards again. I kind of wanted quitting to be on my own terms, which made me sad because it wasn't on my terms. It wasn't really on my terms. It was on the government's terms. I definitely feel like the end of my political career was stolen from me by that. Sorry. It's really nice to tell people what actually happened. I think a lot of people, especially like a lot of my biggest supporters, they felt very abandoned. They felt like I just disappeared and left them and I didn't give any explanation, but it wasn't because of that. There was a lot more going on in the background that I never spoke about. There are definitely times where I wish I could go back and tell myself never to go to that conference, to just stay in the army. I don't think I would have believed me if I told me what happened. I don't think I would have believed governments would stop people from entering countries and seeing family just over their political opinions. Maybe over terrorism, extremism. Like, I can't even visit. It's not even immigration. It's like I can't even visit people that I love anymore in many countries in the world just because of my opinions that are held by most people in these countries. But I didn't think that when it came to career, when it came to how this would affect my family, my friends, I didn't think it would be so extreme or ever get to this point. But that's also part of the reason that I believed in everything I did so much. I could see so much important conversation being stifled, so many people who didn't have a voice and were so afraid, and I wanted to be that voice for people, and being that voice for people obviously had risks that I was willing to take, but probably didn't fully understand when I got into politics. A lot of story to tell, so let's get back to it because it somehow gets worse. So then I've quit. I published my letter. I'm going to go be with my family. And then I get a text from Milo Yiannopoulos, which, if you've been paying attention so far, is never a good omen. Milo calls on the phone and he's irate about Kaylin and George. And I just don't care at this point. I tell Milo, listen, I'm married. I'm starting a family. I've got these visa issues. I can't talk about anything. I can't be involved in anything publicly. Please just leave me alone. He is so angry, though. He is going off saying, Lauren, you need to help me. You need to do something for me right now. If I were in a room with Kaylin and George, I would put a shotgun in their mouths and I would blow their brains out right now. I hate them and they need to pay. And you are going to help me with it. Lauren, us beautiful people, he would always talk like this. It was so strange. Us beautiful people, if people attack us all the time, they're always after us, aren't they? And Lauren, I have all of this horrible gossip about you from ugly women that are jealous of you. His words. And I would hate to have to publish it because you didn't want to give me any blackmail on Kaylin and George. All I need from you is a disavowal. All I need is for you to tell me that they stole things from you. They stole from you, didn't they? They stole equipment from you. They scammed you. They're just horrible people, aren't they? And all that kept flashing back into my head was that conversation about Alam I had years ago, where he told me Alam was a secret Antifa spy and this horrible, evil person that needed to be taken out. And all he needed was a little bit of blackmail on him. It brought me back to Margaret. Lauren, don't you remember what an awful person Margaret was? Stole all the privilege grant money. Oh, and then it turns out Milo actually had the privilege grant money. And I was sick of it. I wanted none of it. I was like, Milo, no, I'm not going to give you blackmail on them. They haven't stolen from me. I don't want to be involved in any of this. And half the questions you're asking me are extremely leading and completely untrue. So I just told him, no, Milo. You know what? Write what you will about me. I don't want to be involved in it. I can't. And Milo's like, oh, sweetie, darling, I'll send you an email. Don't worry about it. So Milo sends me an email after, and I want to read you some of the questions in it because it was just insane. It was not journalism, not even remotely. His questions, he says, not in any particular order. When did you first find out Kaylin was stealing from Tommy Robinson? When did you find out they were stealing from Ezra Levant? Did you employ them knowing they'd previously stolen money or engaged in financial fraud, including inflated invoices? How much money did they steal from you? When did you find out they were working with Hope Not Hate? When did you find out they had shared Gavin's location with Antifa? What was your reaction? If the boys stole from you and took advantage of you, even supposing you knew nothing about their activities, why did you continue to employ them? Did they ever threaten you? Do you have any idea why people would say you knew about everything? Did you ever hear Kaylin put a tracker in Tommy Robinson's car? It wasn't, did they steal? It was, when did they steal? How much did they steal? Milo even had accused them on the phone. He said, did they steal all the Australia money? Obviously, my reaction was, this is nonsense. First of all, Kaylin and George wasn't even in Australia. Kaylin came and didn't get paid anything. The tour managers stole all the money, so I knew Milo was just taking shots in the dark, trying to get as much dirt on these guys as possible. I didn't fully understand why Milo hated them so much. All I knew was that anyone who crossed Milo, even for completely legitimate reasons, had their lives absolutely destroyed or attacked by him. And once again, I wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. So I just said, listen, if you send me proof that they doxed Gavin and shared his location with Antifa, if you show me proof that they put trackers in his car, if you show me proof for any of this theft, any of it, I'll disavow it. Of course, Milo, of course. But he never sent me any, nothing. Never sent me a stick of proof. In fact, I later found out there was a guy who sent me a DM on Instagram. He said, Milo messaged me and told me I needed to write to him saying Kaylin and George stole from me. And he tried to leverage the fact that he let me write for his website Dangerous once and said, you owe me one, so I need you to write a message saying Kaylin and George stole from you for his article. And he said, I've never met Kaylin and George. I've never worked with them. I've never used their equipment before. How could they have stolen from me when I've never known them? But once again, Milo did not care about the facts involved. Even if there were nefarious things that Kaylin and George did, it wasn't, Milo wouldn't have cared. It wouldn't have been enough. He has to lie in everything he does. Oh, it was just so insane. So I was just so sick of it. I was like, I'm not going to disavow them. I'm not going to throw them under the bus for you. I don't know what you've got up your sleeve. If you hate them, that's between you and them. Leave me out of it. He called me multiple times, threatened me multiple times. I begged him, just leave me alone. I've got my family stuff. I just want out of this world and your world. I remember the last, I got one last text from him before never speaking to the man again, which said, Lauren, I'm giving you one last opportunity to throw Kaylin and George under the bus. And I actually have a screenshot of that text. He knew fully what he was doing. He wasn't trying to get information to expose the truth to the right-wingers. I gotta get the truth out there, right? It was, I'm gonna threaten you and you're gonna throw these people under the bus for me. Throw them under the bus, those words directly. So I can destroy their life because they crossed me. That's all. That's what it was. Of course, I have no interest in that. But unfortunately, a lot of fucking people in politics do. They're willing to throw anyone and everyone under the bus to keep Milo off their ass, to keep anyone off their ass to save their career. At this point, I wasn't working with Kaylin and George anymore. They were off doing work for Stefan Molyneux. They were working with Alex Jones. They were working with Tommy Robinson, although probably half and half behind the scenes at this point. And I then saw they were working on a film called You Can't Watch This. And I asked Kaylin about it. I was like, what is going on with this Milo stuff? Why is he contacting me? And Kaylin just sent me a text from Milo saying, it probably has something to do with this. I wish I could say the start of all of this wasn't so fucking petty as to be ridiculous. I wish I could say it was over something serious. I wish I could say all of this actually were about Kaylin and George working for Hope Not Hate and betraying people on the right wing, because then at least I would have some faith, a smidge of faith in the right wing. It is ludicrous to make a movie like this without me in it. A joke. I am patient zero for everything. No. Also, go fuck yourself, you treacherous slime bag. Your day in the barrel is coming. I am coming for you. You will not know when or how, but I am coming for you. That is an actual message Milo sent Kaylin and George. An actual message. Simply because he was not included in a film they were making for Alex Jones. That's all. Much like the Australia tour, much like the stuff with Alan, much like the stuff with Margaret, if you don't include him, if he is not the #1 feature in everything, your day in the barrel is coming. Absolutely insane, psychopathic behavior. And so their day in the barrel did come. And mine too, apparently, as I refused to throw them under the bus. Milo published an article called Say Farewell to the Klepto Queens of the Far Right, in which every ridiculous accusation he wrote in that email to me that never got any confirmation or any proof to it, he published as fact. He published just as 100% fact in this piece. I knew within the first minute of reading this article, it was complete nonsense. If I went through all the accusations in this article, it would be another 4 hours of this video, but I could easily go through and debunk 99% of the things, at least anything I was involved in. So like one email says that the boys stole $10,000 from me and they put a screenshot saying, hey, we're missing $10,000 in travel expenses. But if you actually read the full email, you'll see at the bottom it says receipts. We're missing the receipts. We need to get them in so we can file them for tax season, which is completely reasonable and what every properly operating business does. So that's just how Milo would operate. He'd take one piece of evidence and say, look, I've got this one piece of evidence, and then extrapolate a ton of stuff that didn't happen. But as long as he had that one reference that people didn't read into that much, he could pretend it was a receipt for all of the lies he would write. There was another bit where he had an email, there were late rentals, late returns, and he said, look, they defrauded all these rental companies. And it's like, no, they were late returning stuff to the rental companies. I've done that a million times. Anyone who works in film is like, oh, shoot, we went over 5 hours with filming, we'll return it in the morning, and you get a late notice. It was just like absurd how scorched earth he was going, to the point that he's just lying. Anyone who was involved in the article or was quoted knows it was a lie. Lucy Brown, who is cited in the piece, spoken to her a million times. She couldn't believe what came out after she spoke to Milo. She couldn't believe how much her words were twisted. Spoke to Alex Jones after the piece was released, and he apologized and said, I can't believe all of this was written about you guys. I'm so sorry. I'm probably never going to have Milo on the show again after witnessing this, which is probably kind of sweet justice, as that first meeting that I had with Milo in Los Angeles, the advice he gave me in 2015 was to never go on Alex Jones's show. That's just a random little tidbit. There was only one part of this article that I really hope was true, because it's funny as shit if it is, but Milo claims that Kaylin and George doctored all of Tommy Robinson's videos to make him have a chipmunk voice, which is hysterical, if real. But that's a very funny accusation. But now one thing I really want to hit on is you'll notice most of this article is about how Kaylin and George screwed over Tommy Robinson, how they were stealing from him, ruining his life, trying to get him killed, trying to dox his family, all this stuff. And Tommy never said anything publicly to deny this, right? In fact, I think Milo may even have a bit in the article where Tommy says it's all true. So if you think this video is all just about how Milo fucked up, Tommy is not off the hook here either, because this was some pretty, I think it was pretty awful to this day that he didn't come out and say this was a lie. The real tea is, Tommy loved working with Kaylin and George, and he was pissed when he got out of prison and Kaylin and George were off filming Borderless with me. He was thinking, who's gonna film my videos? Who's gonna work with me? You are my crew. You have made me successful. You are mine, not Lauren's crew. It wasn't the case that it was like Kaylin and George are Lauren's personal crew and Tommy was trying to get rid of them no matter what. No, it was the opposite. Tommy would show up to Kaylin and George's house with suitcases of cash, begging them to come back and work for him. But they didn't want to do it anymore because it was too much fucking drama. Way too much drama. They just wanted to do documentaries with me and potentially even work their way out of politics altogether. They were never particularly political people. They just liked doing art stuff. They liked doing movies. So Tommy still, even when this article was published, was still trying to work with Kaylin and George, yet allowed the perception of them being these horrible villains to persist to keep his reputation as the victim. Milo alleges that the reason Tommy kept working with them and was still working with them when the article was published was because they were blackmailing him and threatening him. It's Tommy Robinson. You know, you think two gay guys are threatening Tommy Robinson and forcing Tommy to do videos with them? The whole idea is just absurd.
Kaylin Robinson, who stole £20,000 Bitcoin and was sacked by me. Yeah? Kaylin Robinson, with no evidence or nothing, is their source of information for all of these allegations. So I sit and read the allegations, and I'm not stupid. One of them is about prostitution, cocaine. Now I know what's coming. I know a headline's coming across all the national media, Tommy Robinson prostitutes cocaine. I know it's coming. That's where the money went. That's where the money went. Yeah?
A few weeks after this article was published, they were in a studio filming all together. I have the footage of it. Tommy, Kaylin, and George all together, smiling, laughing, joking. Kaylin, in fact, has sent me thousands of messages between the two of them, all post this article being published in which they were exposed as blackmailing, trying to kill Tommy, everything, of Tommy begging them to do work together, saying, hey, we're going to do this project, we're going to do this book, we're going to film this and that.
Look, once I've done the grooming documentary, we call it The Rape of Britain, and we use Easy Meat statistics and we update them for the current date. That's the book idea, mate.
I can't do Monday. I'm not in. Maybe we just get the warehouse done and cool. I'll ring her in a bit. Can we book it for as early as possible? All right, yeah, 11's still cool then. We can still do, yeah, still do 11. Yeah, cool. Well, I've done the same. Yo, good morning, bro. Sorry, mate, it's chasing you on that thing. I want to watch it. Remember we had the screenshot, bro. Kaylin, you know the photo you... Yeah, don't matter, bro. Yeah. Yeah, all right, bro.
It's the same thing since dot one of meeting the three of them. There had been too much shit that had happened publicly. Tommy had blamed them for too much of his problems, much like Lucy Brown, made them the scapegoat for everything, but didn't have a good enough film crew to replace them, so kept begging them to work with him privately behind the scenes while lying to his audience, pretending they weren't working together. And they were these horrible, awful traitors. And it was the most disgusting shit. It was so disgusting to watch. I mean, Tommy had his reasons, but to me, they're still inexcusable. So when people look at me today and they're like, oh, but can't you see that Caitlyn and George are these awful traitors that went and worked for the left wing, and they went and exposed all these right wingers, and now they're working for this huge left-wing media company. I'm not surprised. It doesn't surprise me. They were so screwed over and treated horrendously by everyone they worked for in media. You'll notice they don't really say much about me, right? And they were never particularly political. They weren't these big, yes, I'm a huge right-winger, let's fight for the fight. They were just artists that got into this world of politics and decided, holy shit, there's no way we're staying in here. Everyone's blackmailing each other. Everyone hates each other. If I don't include this one gay guy in a movie, he wants to kill me with a shotgun. Why the hell would they want to stay in right-wing politics? And this is the real hard pill that people have to swallow. You can't just call people traitors that you run out of your own movement. You can't just sit there and claim to be a victim of Caitlyn and George after you spread a bunch of rumors about them, you lie about them, you make them hate every single thing about the right, and then pretend you're the victim. It's until the right can accept that they are chasing people away, it's not going to grow, it's not going to get better, and it's certainly not going to get better when they're chasing away the only artists in their movement.
And I just want to touch on this once more, editing, because I know a lot of you will probably go to the media and look up Caitlyn and George and wonder what have they done since. And yeah, they have absolutely gone and done exposés on the right at this point. They have both come out and said they hated it all. It was just full of cocaine, hookers, and scam artists. They've obviously gone to the media and done this stuff now. And yeah, they did experience and witness a lot of that stuff. So they're not even lying. I told them at the time, I remember when they initially just said, F it, we're leaving politics and we're turning against the right, I said, don't do it, guys. This is just going to confirm in people's minds that you guys were actually the traitors the entire time. But at that point, they genuinely did just dislike the right. It wasn't false. At that point, it had grown to such a point where they're like, this is just an awful movement. And I hate to say, they had a very human reaction. They weren't activists like I was. Not everyone can sit in silence for years being slandered like I did to protect the reputations of people in a political movement because you still have these ideals about this cause you were fighting for. So still to this day, even though they came to dislike the politics, even though they came to dislike what I did and what I still do and are working against it, I understand why. I understand why.
I said I'd get through this, and I'm gonna get through this. One day. Got this. Remember when I mentioned that text from Milo where he said, I have one last chance to throw Caitlyn and George under the bus? Well, I gotta give the man credit. He has follow through for his threats, right? He told me, I've got a bunch of gossip from ugly women, his words, that are jealous of you. And I would hate to put it in my article, Lauren, but just gonna have to do it if you aren't willing to throw Caitlyn and George under the bus. I guess my one crime in politics was I was one of the few people that just wouldn't f*** over my support staff over and over again to save my own career. Should have learned my lesson, but yeah, he definitely followed through with that threat. And if you get to, I don't know, halfway through the article, he begins with his discussion of Lauren Southern and how I was involved in all of this fraudulent behavior, how I was all part of the plan, secretly talking to Hope Not Hate, but even worse, everything I did was a lie. Everything I did wasn't actually me. It was all written for me by men that I was blackmailing and sleeping with for content. Is there any more of a classic go-to attack a woman thing you can grasp onto than nothing she did was her own and she fucked her way to the top? I'll give him that. I'll give him credit for picking the most hard-hitting attack you can get on the right towards a woman, right? Really twisting the knife point of this bit was where he says, Alan Bokhari was the one who ghost wrote all of my stuff, and that I was blackmailing Alan Bokhari to write for me. Now that wouldn't really hit anyone the same way reading that article, other than people who knew about what had happened with Alan at the beginning of this video. That it was in fact the opposite. Milo was blackmailing Alan, and Alan was writing all of Milo's content. but he knew he could get away with saying the exact opposite in this piece and that I could not respond. Getting a little extra dagger to the back there, right? So of course, Alan was kind enough to send me a text after this article went up and said, Lauren, obviously none of this is true. Do you want me to say something publicly? And at the time I said, let's just ignore it. I don't think anyone's gonna care. It's Milo, there's no evidence. I was a bit wrong. A lot of people did care for some reason. But Alan did eventually publish a tweet saying that this was all nonsense and lies, which was extremely kind of him, like a stand-up guy, really stand-up guy. And then the rest of the men that Milo alleges I slept with for content were all anonymous. They were all an anonymous source. An anonymous source says, which we all know what an anonymous source means in a Milo article. It means Milo's imagination and just what he wanted to be in the piece. But that pissed me off. It really pissed me off because so many people believed it. And I'd like to think that anyone who read this article could go to my YouTube channel and click top videos and see that the vast majority of my most popular videos are streeters live. Would have been impossible to sleep with someone to write them for me, but you know, that's the best accusation you can go with for trying to take down, especially a woman on the right. She has no ideas of her own. She slept her way to the top, all of that. Oof. Made me so mad, especially knowing, and Milo would have known this too, couldn't respond to any of it. Milo must have a really low estimation of his readers, because he literally insinuated that I may have slept with my gay video editor for my scripts, George, Kaylin's partner. In truth, George is a wonderful writer, and I would send my scripts to him to correct, and he'd send me quite catty notes back about what I did wrong and right in them. And absolutely, every single person in politics has people they send notes to, has people that help them with their writing. No shot. Obviously, Milo knows this, having Alan ghostwrite all of his stuff, but I have a very, very, very small pool of people that I respect enough to help me edit my work. Kaylin and George absolutely would help edit my projects, and I had one really good friend that would help me with speeches and work, and a girlfriend of mine that would assist as well, but not one of them that I ever slept with. Not one. In fact, it's kind of become a running joke now when I have a friend edit my script. If I'm talking about dollars with the amounts, I'll just say I'll give you 100 secs to do a look over of my work today. So it's become a bit of a joke now, but obviously at the time it was really, really infuriating to see all my work undermined like that. One thing that made me extra emotional about this bit of the article was I had spent so much time in my life standing up for men who were falsely accused. Men who are falsely accused of rape, of nefarious actions, whatever it may be, mostly based on the argument of innocent until proven guilty. We need to look at the evidence. And to have all of these red pill YouTubers, Meninists, MGTOW, MRAs, make videos coming out just uncritically believing everything that had been said about me, that pissed me off, you know.
According to an article released by the now very desperate Milo Yiannopoulos on his website dangerous.com, Lauren's two gay employees and cameramen, Kaylin Robertson and George Llewellyn John, were involved in all sorts of fraudulent money-making schemes and risky backstabbing behavior, which Lauren Southern was clearly aware of during the filming of her documentary Borderless. Simply put, Lauren milked the majority of her thirsty fans for a few years and could now afford to burn out in the world of politics and retire early with the money she had made off her naive fans.
Here's what a lot of people don't realize is so much of the political is personal. When you see videos about Lauren Southern was a fraud, there's a good shot that that person feels scorned by me in one way or another, and it had absolutely nothing to do with them genuinely believing these things and everything to do with them wanting a chance to take a shot back at me because they're upset with me, typically because I didn't date them or didn't sleep with them. That's just a sad, sad reality. Let me take you back to filming Borderless a few years. I remember sitting at a cafe in Vienna, and there's this one YouTuber named Squatting Slav TV, and it was the creepiest thing ever. I had posted a photo of a napkin and a cup at a cafe, And I come out from the bathroom at the cafe to go back to my seat, and I see this man standing there looking down at his phone and looking up at the sign above the cafe, looking at the napkins and looking around, and then he sees me and like zeroes in and starts making a beeline for me. And I look up and I'm like, who is this guy? What is he doing here? He looks down and he's like, hello? Are you Lauren? Are you Lauren? Oh, I'm squatting Slab TV. And like asks me to sit at my table with me. And I can see he found where I was in Vienna by looking at my Instagram story and finding the label on the napkin to stalk me to come and try to have lunch with me. It was the creepiest thing ever. And I told him, of course not. Please, like, leave me alone. This is really creepy and weird. And after I said no to him and said, I don't want to have coffee with you after you've stalked me to a cafe in Vienna, I started seeing this guy come out with all of these videos about how I'm a horrible, evil con artist. Like, I didn't even find it until now, but he actually even sent me a DM saying, Lauren, can we hang out in Vienna? Where are you? But think about how up that is. This is once again one of these situations where this person who exudes this personality of, I care about the red pill, I care about what the truth you, the people, need to hear, actually bases all of their politics off of their own personal experiences. And whether they attack someone or not has nothing to do with whether they're doing good work, whether they're actually trying to get out there and tell the truth, but has everything to do with whether they feel personally scorned or not, whether they can make money, whether they can get sex off something. It's all about them. That's what they base their politics on. Anyways, speaking of scorned people, as I mentioned, Milo would always get his quotes or blackmail from someone who he felt would give him information, like when he called me about Alum, when he called Faith about me, right? It's who are the people that hate this person that are going to give me the worst, most exaggerated false interpretation that I can get to publish in my article or ruin their career. And I'll just read some of these interesting quotes. He got Laura Loomer, for example, who said, speaking of me, it's a shame that her quest for fame and fortune overrode loyalty to those who facilitated the rise in her career. Then there's Faith, who of course stated, Lauren didn't know or care what they were doing, of Kaylin and George, with Milo stretching her words to make the implication that Southern was in on it. This giant Antifa plan, right? And lastly, he quoted a former friend who is unidentified, who states, trust me, she knew about everything. Why do you think she's quitting journalism? Who retires at 26? Her retirement isn't about making babies. It's about dodging bullets. Now, this former friend is almost 100% Milo Yiannopoulos, because of course, and this is what makes it extra insidious, Milo knew why I was quitting. He knew I was quitting because of my family. He knew I was quitting because I needed my visa. And he knew I couldn't respond to any of this. So he knew he could make comments as sick as this to say the opposite of what had actually happened and completely get away with it. To wrap this stuff up, like, this may not seem like a big deal to people watching because obviously it's old news, no one's really talking about that crazy article years ago anymore, but at the time it was huge. Everyone was talking about it. I had massive figures with hundreds of thousands of views talking about how I was this Antifa spy. It was all over Twitter. I couldn't respond to anything, but my whole Twitter timeline was all these people who were previously fans saying, how dare I betray the entire movement? Even when I made my coming back video saying, hey guys, I've returned to politics, not saying much because I was worried about my visa status. Everyone in the comments, thousands of comments of people saying, we know you screwed over Tommy Robinson. We know you did X, Y, Z. So many people believed this at the time. And I cannot even begin to explain how it feels to have to leave politics because you are being punished by a government for speaking out about issues you deeply, deeply care about, sacrificing your life, your career, your ability to see family and friends, to travel. I was banned from the US for 2 years, holy. Sacrificing all of this and being forced to quit because of all those sacrifices I made for something I truly, truly believed in. And then to have that silence, that forced silence from the government be used to turn everyone that I had fought for against me. And to have everyone say I was a fraud. Like, I can't even begin to explain how that makes one feel. My biggest regret, I've always felt like all of this is just too much to explain. Too much to explain, too complicated. I'm going to have so many people come after me legally for talking about this stuff. I'm going to have, you know, the government come after me for talking about what they did to me. I was so scared to talk about all of this for so long, but I really, really deeply regret that I didn't make this my comeback video and just tell you all what had happened, and I'm sorry for that. I genuinely am sorry. I was really angry with a lot of people who just believed all of these things with no evidence. I was really angry at my audience, a lot of people. And I kind of set that aside though, and I remembered the things I believed about Margaret. I remember the things I believed about Alum. I remember believing these things just because Milo said them, right? So what ground do I have to stand on to be mad at other people for just believing this big figure, especially when I didn't tell my side of the story? And I'm sorry that I'm just getting the bravery now to talk about it, because I probably could have done a lot more good if I had just been honest about this all from the start. Apparently I could be honest about every single thing in politics that I saw, except about the corruption in my own political movement, because that was hard. They were my team. They were the only thing I had standing with me against the world, and I didn't want to break that. I would rather lose my reputation, and I would rather have everyone hate me than to attack this entity I believed in so much. But honestly, now looking back at it, it needed a cleanse. And a lot of people look at this and they look back on 2016, they look back on the dissident right with a lot of nostalgia, and they think it's such a shame that all of this went away, that it was censored and attacked by the government and all of these NGOs, and that it was dismantled so unjustly. And I hope you can kind of understand why I don't have that same nostalgia. I don't. And I actually think that the dissident right failed because the world is a just place. And that's a scary thing for me to say. I am sorry that the people who represented you were so f***ed up and squandered so much of your money and trust. And that's why I don't have that same nostalgia. And it was my job. It was my job to tell you all this stuff. It was my job to tell you the truth, but it was so hard to spoil what so many people believed in at the time. It was really hard for me to do, and I'm only just kind of getting the confidence to do that. I think some of the most broken people get involved in politics for exactly that reason. They're broken and they want to know why they're broken and why the world is so broken around them. But it doesn't change the fact that so many horrible things were done. And I hope that some of you understand why I've come and taken a bit more nuanced approach to things after cults of personality and just believing what the right wing said did so much harm to me. Not actually being critical of your own side did so much harm to me and people I care about. So as much as I do believe in the ideals of conservatism, I'm very critical as well. I'm very, very critical for exactly these reasons and the experiences I've been through. So, wow, it's getting dark out. I've been talking to y'all all day. I should have known this video was going to take this long to film. It's a lot, but it's still not over somehow. Fast forward to 2020. I'm a mom now. Life's changed a lot. I'm in Australia, and I finally got news that I was on a more substantive visa, one that was not going to be compromised by this vacuum stuff. And I got to this point where I was like, I can talk to you guys again. I can do what I love. I can speak about the world and the issues that I cared about. Politics scared me at that point still, everything I'd been through, but I wanted to come back. I wanted to come back and talk to you all again. And I made that video, why I left and why I'm back, where I wasn't entirely honest. Told you the truth, but I left out most of it. It's my fault. And when I finally got the courage to at least return, I wasn't quite ready to talk about all this stuff. Who came out of the woodworks? I'd already talked about Tommy, already talked about Faith, already talked about Milo and all these people that I looked up to so much as heroes in the dissident right that had just destroyed and black-pilled my brain on politics. And of course, one more had to come out for a final backstab, and was none other than Paul Joseph Watson.
Oh, here she comes. Watch out, boy, she'll chew you up. Oh, here she comes. She's a man-eater. Oh, here she comes. Watch out, boy, she'll chew you up. Oh, here she comes. She's a man-eater.
After I came out with my video saying, I'm back to talk to you guys again. I just want to deal with the truth. I want to make documentaries again. I want to just have this cultural conversation, do what I love. Of course, I had all of the people that still believed the Milo article. I knew it was a big deal when it came out, but I didn't think there would be that many people that still remembered it and thought about it. But there were. There were a lot of people who still believed it uncritically at the time. And one person that was right out of the gate, ready to slam down that narrative again, was Paul, who, right when I made my video, decided to tweet out, "Right-wing YouTuber suddenly returns, claiming to be nuanced centrist," which I never said, "having disappeared at the exact point where everyone else was fucked over and banned for the last 18 months, having thrown them under the bus by funding the very people responsible for all that. Inauthentic." And this was just one of many tweets he sent about me that day, saying I was a grifter, I was inauthentic, I was an evil Antifa spy, all of this stuff. The only real accusation I could discern from Paul's cocaine-fueled rants about me on Twitter was that I had retired at the exact moment when InfoWars and all these other people were being banned. And to that, I would say I deeply apologize that my pregnancy and visa issues were so rude as to not pay attention to the news cycle. But the funny thing about this is the exact thing that Paul is attacking me for here, the exact issue that he is bemoaning me for, is exactly what Paul did at the time. In fact, Alex Jones reached out to Kaylin right when InfoWars was being banned off everything and said this: "Paul has gotten real tense about promoting InfoWars or anything now that this ban has happened, and he's not being really responsive. So it's all this timidness and other stuff," Alex complained in a voice note. "Everyone else I work with is starting to get really nebulous." So to Paul, for this accusation, I say, "Physician, heal thyself. You have almost completely cut yourself off from InfoWars to protect yourself, and you have the audacity to accuse me of doing just that." But worse than all of that is why Paul is attacking me. Because of course, when we're dealing with these figures from the dissident right, it can't just be that he has this true faith and needs to find the frauds in the movement to expose them to the right. No, there has to be a personal factor to it.
Well, imagine my shock. Imagine my shock. Imagine my shock. Well, imagine my shock.
I don't like to talk about these things publicly. I don't think it is good manners in any regard, but my father always told me, "Lauren, don't start a fight, but finish one." So the last time I saw Paul Joseph Watson, we went on a date. Perhaps my worst crime in politics. He took me to a restaurant in Battersea. It was a horrendous dinner conversation, if I'm being honest, but we went back to his flat, chatted for a few hours, had cigars, and he wanted to sleep with me, like a good conservative influencer, right? And I'm no saint. I'm not a perfect person, and I'm not going to pretend to be. But at that time, I had absolutely decided I was looking for something serious. I wanted a family. I didn't want just a one-night stand. So I told Paul that. I said, "You know what? No, I'm sorry. I'm looking for something serious." And he walked me to his door, questioned me a few times on it, asked me to stay, and I said no. Goodbye, I'm leaving. And ever since that day I rejected him, I have received nothing but insanity from the man. From crazy text messages at 4 a.m, cocaine-fueled rants that go on for hours, sending me Kanye lyrics, asking me to go on dates with him in Europe. It has genuinely been insane. And of course, spreading gossip that I'm an Antifa spy, a slut, a whore, all of these things, because what better name to call a girl who won't sleep with you than a whore, right? But I have never, ever seen a man react so badly to rejection. I've never seen a man act so jilted, so scorned. And you know what, Paul, If you want to deny any of this, if you want to pretend that you truly were on some moral crusade against the frauds and the inauthentic people in the movement, as if you don't have a few things to say about that, you can deny all of this, and I'd be happy, more than happy, to provide more evidence for it. But I don't think you want me to do that. So we'll just leave that there. Okay, I'll be honest with you all. Half of this is for selfish reasons. I don't even know if I'd say selfish. I just want to tell my side of the story. I just finally want people to hear my side, because I've stayed silent for so long. And I have so much to tell, and this is only 1% of it, if that. And then the other half is genuinely for you. You deserve to hear all of this. You deserve to hear the truth of what was going on behind the scenes. And my loyalty to this movement, not wanting to expose these people that so many people look up to, not wanting to talk about the truth of conservatism, because we've got the left to go after. We've got all this insane progressivism to go after. We can't be infighting. What happened is that by ignoring the problems in my own side to try to protect it, I just allowed a lot of toxicity to corrode it from the inside. And it collapsed anyways. It collapsed anyways, and deservingly so. I can't sit here and pretend like the larger half of what happened to the dissident right wasn't entirely their own fault. You can't fix anything if you don't admit to yourself that you had fault. You can't. The selfishness, the ego, the cult of personality, believing people just because they were big and famous and leaders of the movement, that was what was our downfall. That was the downfall of the dissident right. And all I can do is hope that maybe out of its ashes we can create something more genuine. You guys, the actual people who this is about, can make something more genuine, because it's us over here, the figures. Me not telling you any of this, me covering it all up to protect my side, that was a up. That was me f***ing up. Everyone else doing things for fame, ego, and money, not everyone, but a lot of people, up. Ups that no one wanted to acknowledge, no one wanted to talk about. We on the right talk all day about the problems with the corporate media, and we're right. There are problems. They are silencing people, covering up stories, lying about facts. They've got all sorts of nefarious figures funding their journalism, all sorts of nefarious figures reporting the news that have all of this horrible stuff about them covered up. And we're right to talk about that. But how can we claim to be any better when we have the same sort of stuff happening on our own side, and have for years? One of the things that Paul Joseph Watson tweeted when I came back was, Lauren has one chance to bend the knee to me, or I'm going to expose everything on her. I never bent the knee to him, and he never exposed anything on me, but I've certainly had those threats made before and been more serious. And I've certainly, even if they didn't have anything on me, they'd just publish lies like Milo did, right? To be honest, behind the scenes in the dissident right, it felt a lot like one big Mexican standoff. Everyone holding blackmail on each other, saying, if you don't support me, no matter what I do, no matter how much money I steal or what I do wrong, well, I got this blackmail gun on you. You did cocaine with me this day, you saw a hooker with me that day, you did, like, everyone's just got blackmail guns on each other saying, you better stick to the script or else. And there's no way that anyone can be honest in that environment. No way. Especially when you get excommunicated from your audience get told you're a fraud. I think that was actually one of the biggest reasons that Kaylin, George, and I were probably kicked out of the right and had so much lies spread about us, was because we knew too much and we didn't want to be a part of it anymore. We didn't want to talk to anyone anymore. We didn't want to be involved. We just wanted to do our own thing, and we knew too much. And if you're not going to be a part of it, if you try to walk away from the Mexican standoff, well, everyone's going to turn their guns to you and shoot you, right? And you're not going to have an audience. You're not going to have people to... Everyone's going to look and be like, why are all of these wonderful figures that do nothing wrong and have nothing wrong with them, why do they all hate you? Why do they all hate you, right? But yeah, I'm glad that I had to quit for a bit. Looking back, as much as it was hard, it was good to be back in the real world, and I'm far more connected to the real world now than I was before, and that's important because I can actually ground myself. There's far too little grounding involved in being a public figure and a political figure, and it's all... people lose themselves. These people and these figures you watch, they aren't perfect people. I'm not a perfect person. And you never want to disappoint your audience. You never want them to look at you and think, like, I believed in you. I believed that you were like this hero, like so many people have disappointed me. But I think that was the mistake from the start, was trying to be heroes instead of just being people that are confused and broken in this world as well, and trying to make sense of it all and just being honest. And hopefully I'll get to be more honest going forward, and hopefully maybe this video will convince more people to be more honest going forward about everything that's going on in the background. But yeah, I love you all. I care for you. I've cared for you the whole time. I've never been a fraud or lying. I've never wanted to hurt any of you. I really, really, really believed in this all. And I'm sorry that I probably hurt a lot of you by keeping this all to myself. But it felt good to say it. It felt good to say it all.
I'm telling you, you're coming along at a very dangerous time for rock and roll. The war is over. They won. And they will ruin rock and roll and strangle everything we love about it.
I listen to the wind of my soul. Where I'll end up, well, I think only God really knows. I've sat upon the setting sun.